Logan McLean is the eldest son of a noble house with an impressive title and an empty treasury. The mansion staff fear him, and his permanently hostile expression does little to reassure them. One day, Logan heads for the castle to meet his father. The soldiers at the entrance refuse to let him pass. To them, he is only the Baron's troublesome son from his previous marriage. Most people either avoid Logan or openly despise him. Until now, arrogance and cruelty were the only things he offered anyone. Today, however, the man standing before them is no longer the Logan they remember. When the gatekeeper pushes his luck, Logan pulls out a pair of gloves and throws them into his face. The insult will be settled through a formal duel. Logan calls the guard a lifelong second-rate soldier, which lands exactly where it hurts. Dominan loses his temper and accepts the challenge. They move to the training ground and take wooden swords. That sounds safe until Aura enters the equation. A knight can turn polished wood into a lethal weapon against a weaker fighter. Naturally, everyone assumes Logan is about to get demolished. Dominan attacks at full strength, wrapping his strike in Aura. Logan slips past it with startling precision and brings his own blade down over Dominan's sword. The impact tears the weapon straight from the guard's hand. Silence swallows the training yard. Nobody can explain how the family disgrace suddenly knows how to fight. Logan calmly offers Dominan another chance, but the fallen soldier can only stare at his aching hand. He knows that first blow came frighteningly close to killing him. Logan does not wait for an answer. He keeps hammering Dominan with the wooden sword, collecting payment for the earlier humiliation. By the end, every castle guard understands one thing. The weak young master they mocked is gone. What they cannot understand is why. The answer begins decades in the future. At 40 years old, Logan is an ordinary soldier with no family left to return to. His comrades ridicule him for once losing a childhood duel against his younger brother. None of them understand how the heir of a noble house ended up among common troops after his entire family was erased. Then the kingdom is betrayed, and enemy forces pour across its borders. Logan fights beside the other soldiers, but courage cannot rescue a war already lost. The kingdom falls, and Logan dies on the battlefield with regret as his final companion. He spent most of his life hurting people who cared about him. More than anything, he wishes he could apologize to his father. Instead of staying dead, Logan jolts awake inside his childhood bedroom. His head is injured from the recent duel with his younger brother. For one confused moment, he wonders whether the battlefield was merely a nightmare. The memories are far too complete for that. Outside the window stands the family castle exactly as it existed during his youth. His younger brother, Ronian, soon enters the room. The boy is visibly frightened, already bracing for Logan's usual cruelty. That fear is understandable. Logan treated everyone terribly, including him. Logan remembers the last time he humiliated Ronian. It was also the last time the boy ever tried approaching him. Memories crash through Logan's mind, while Ronian remains genuinely worried about his condition. Rick knows how volatile the eldest young master can be, so he urges Ronian to leave. Yet Logan does something the room has never witnessed. He speaks softly and asks his brother to come closer. Ronian freezes, and Rick looks equally stunned. Everyone shares the same silent suspicion. Something is very wrong with young Master Logan today. Logan tries to praise Ronian's strength, but the words refuse to come. A compliment cannot repair years of treating his brother like dirt, so Logan embraces Ronian for the first time and asks forgiveness for everything. He admits that he was a terrible brother and tells Ronian how remarkable he truly is. Nobody watching manages to stay dry-eyed. After they talk for a while, Ronian leaves Logan alone with the impossible truth. One more look outside confirms it. Logan has returned to the past, and this life will not end the same way. He intends to change himself and save his family. A maid named Mary accidentally enters and immediately apologizes. Rick follows her, taking responsibility as though she has committed a capital offense. Mary made an honest mistake, yet both servants behave as if Logan might destroy them for it. Seeing their terror from the other side is painfully embarrassing. He finally understands how miserable his old behavior made everyone. Logan tells them nothing is wrong and asks for paper and pens. That simple request creates a new crisis. Rick and Mary quietly panic at the possibility that their young master plans to do actual work. When they return with the supplies, Logan thanks them. Rick can barely process the word. The staff begin wondering whether they are sharing the same bizarre dream. Their reaction gives Logan another unpleasant measure of the person he used to be. He asks to work alone and turns toward the disasters waiting ahead. The Imperial War will begin in 10 years. By then, House McLean will be weak, buried in debt, and unable to survive it. Changing his personality will not be enough. Logan must rebuild the position of his entire house. Worse, a regional civil war erupts only 1 year from now, beginning the collapse of his territory's reputation. He spends time writing everything he remembers and shaping his first response. Once the plan is on paper, Logan decides it is time to face his father. On the way to his father, Logan notices servants turning away to avoid eye contact. They remember a young master who could ruin a life whenever his mood changed. One maid carrying clean clothes fails to see him and falls directly in his path. She goes rigid, convinced one small accident has just ended her career and possibly her life. Instead, Logan offers his hand and gently helps her up. For the maid, this qualifies as a miracle. Then she sees his expression. Unfortunately, kindness looks much less convincing when delivered with the smile of a murderer. She begs for mercy and flees without daring to look back. That reaction teaches Logan an important lesson. Changing his behavior today will not erase years of fear by tomorrow. It also does not help that his friendly face needs serious practice. When his arrival is announced outside the Patriarch's office, Logan's humor disappears. From his perspective, more than 20 years have passed since he last saw his father. Patrick McLean, however, sees only the eldest son who has disappointed him repeatedly. A cold reception is not cruelty. Logan has given the man no reason to offer anything warmer. He asks for permission to train alone in the family's mountain territory. Logan retains a veteran knight's memories, but those memories are trapped inside a lazy, untrained body. He needs strength before he can change the family's future or secure the money required for his plans. Time is already moving against him. In 3 months, a certain girl will arrive and force the next major decision. Patrick assumes his son merely wants to hide after losing to Ronian. Logan denies it and admits he has wasted years while remaining painfully weak. He says he finally intends to improve. His father has heard versions of that promise before. Effort was never Logan's only problem, so Patrick refuses. The rejection is deserved, and Logan knows it. He admits that his behavior has always been the greater failure. Patrick no longer has patience for familiar lies and orders him out. Every ugly choice from Logan's past is now standing between him and a second chance. Still, Logan refuses to leave without speaking honestly. He calls his former self foolish and immature. This training, he explains, will be the first real proof that he intends to change. Even a deeply disappointed father cannot abandon his child completely. Patrick finally grants him one last opportunity. Before Logan leaves, Patrick asks whether 3 months can truly close the distance between him and Ronian. Logan answers without hesitation. He is not training to defeat his brother. The opponent he needs to overcome is himself. For the first time in years, Patrick feels a trace of respect for his eldest son. He never says it aloud, but Logan notices the shift. That tiny reaction is enough to prove that changing course matters. Logan retreats into the mountains for 3 months. Rebuilding his neglected body is only the beginning. True warriors draw life force through a core powerful enough to challenge monsters and even dragons. Day after day, Logan drives himself to the edge until that core finally forms. In his previous life, the same achievement took him until 40. This time, decades of experience guide a much younger body. The new core lets him push beyond his former physical limits. On the final day, he stands before a massive tree and prepares his strongest technique. Aura gathers through his sword, muscles, and entire frame. The strike cuts through the space between blade and target before splitting whatever waits beyond it. This is power Logan mastered near the end of his first life. Now he can summon it while still young. Success comes with a brutal warning though. His present body pays heavily for using the technique, making it a weapon reserved for desperate moments. With training complete, Logan can finally return home and start changing the future. First, he desperately needs clean clothes. 3 months in the mountains have left him smelling like a sewer. Back at the estate, Logan approaches his father's quarters to show the results. Dominan blocks him again, claiming only direct blood members of House McLean may enter without permission. The excuse reveals something worse than one disrespectful guard. Logan's authority inside his own family is already slipping, so he challenges Dominan on the spot. The trained soldier expects an easy lesson for a spoiled noble. Instead, Logan defeats him in front of the castle guards and leaves the entire household staring at a young master they no longer recognize. Dominan's defeat is the product of Logan's training and a lifetime of combat experience. More importantly, it warns every other guard against testing his authority. Later, Patrick summons Logan to his office. He admits the duel was impressive, acknowledges that Logan has awakened his power, and asks what happened in the mountains. Logan is surprised to learn that his father watched the fight. He explains that he abandoned his greed, and with that clearer mind, strength finally began filling him. The explanation sounds suspiciously convenient, but its foundation is real. In his first life, Logan awakened only after releasing the revenge that consumed him, and that realization did not reach him until 40. Patrick is astonished that one change in perspective transformed his son so completely. He admits that Logan truly seems different. Then the praise ends. The first thing his newly awakened son did was beat a knight into the ground. Logan argues that Dominan earned the punishment and asks whether Patrick heard the full report. Patrick has, but he still considers the violence excessive. Logan refuses to agree. Dominan tried deceiving his master's own blood and publicly reducing him to a joke. Leaving that behavior unanswered would poison the discipline of the entire household. Every organization depends on hierarchy. Once that structure becomes optional, the organization begins collapsing with it. Logan learned that lesson during 10 years among mercenaries. He learned another lesson there too. Armed men understand order much faster when the first correction is unforgettable. Dominan's beating will keep the rest of the knights from making the same mistake. Patrick agrees that Dominan carries most of the blame. Dominan neglected his duty and misled Logan, yet Logan still took an enormous risk and should have shown restraint. In his first life, his father never offered this kind of patience. Patrick notices the confusion and even jokes about whether Logan would prefer a punishment. Logan quickly assures him that he is perfectly satisfied. His father makes the boundary clear. The assault was not justified, and Logan must never repeat it without permission. He has not even received an official rank inside the family yet. Logan accepts the warning respectfully and promises to remember it. Then Patrick introduces a far more profitable problem. Logan's fiancée, Rena, will visit soon. The news appears to catch him off guard, but the look on his face is not fear or surprise. It is anticipation. If Rena is coming, payday is finally approaching. As if summoned by that thought, Princess Rena Wolf is announced. Rena's arrival quiets every woman in the hall and makes the guards envy Logan. She greets Lord McLean with perfect manners, noting how long it has been since their last meeting. Patrick is struck by how much the girl has grown. Even Rick watches from a distance, impressed by the elegant young woman she has become. Logan alone looks completely unmoved. Rena carries a letter entrusted to her by her father, Count Kyron Wolf. She begins reading the formal message to Baron Patrick McLean. The letter spends nearly 30 minutes proving that diplomacy can be a weapon of exhaustion. Then its final request wakes everyone immediately. House Wolf wants Rena and Logan's arranged marriage dissolved. Logan strips away the polite language. House Wolf expected Patrick to rise beyond high-ranking knight, yet his progress has remained stalled for 20 years. Logan's own reputation is even worse. From their perspective, joining the two families no longer offers enough value, so they want separate futures. Patrick hears the same meaning and erupts. The engagement is being cancelled without a proper explanation, turning the entire visit into a public insult. Rena insists humiliation was never the intention. She volunteered to deliver the message precisely because she feared Patrick would misunderstand it. Her performance is painfully convincing. Rena recalls the year she spent with House McLean as a child, and speaks warmly about her memories with Logan. She claims those moments remain precious, but family duty leaves her powerless against her father's decision. Coming here to apologize in person is supposedly the only choice she still controls. Most of the room is captivated. The servants decide her heart must be as lovely as her face. Logan and his stepmother Marion remain far less impressed. Logan asks for the actual reason behind these unavoidable circumstances. Marion presses the question as well. She has always viewed Logan as a threat to Ronian's succession, but an attack on family honor changes the calculation. Rinna apologizes again and claims she was never told the reason. As a daughter expected to marry outside the family, important affairs are apparently kept from her. That answer only worsens the insult. She has arrived to terminate the engagement without offering a cause. With her composure beginning to crack, Rinna finally reveals House Wolf's compensation, 3 million gold. Dwayne Filsner, House McLean's financial manager, nearly collapses from hearing the number. Logan has the opposite reaction. 3 million is exactly the opportunity he was waiting for. Patrick, unfortunately, is not thinking about the budget. He explodes at the suggestion that his family's dignity can be purchased. A young knight from House Wolf immediately shields Rinna and begs him to calm down. The man introduces himself as Rockfern. Patrick recognizes that Rockfern has already reached high-ranking knight despite his age. Injuring House Wolf's rising star would make a tempting price for the humiliation. Rockfern answers carefully. Count Wolf described Patrick as honorable, not as a man who attacks a young princess or persecutes someone beneath him. Rinna adds that the gold is not meant to buy McLean's honor. She frames it as a sincere gesture intended to preserve friendship between the families. Patrick understands the trap. If he keeps threatening them, he becomes the dishonorable party. Chiron sent young envoys because Patrick's own principles would protect them. He finally steps back. Even visitors carrying miserable news remain guests under his roof. House McLean will not harm them. However, Patrick also refuses their one-sided settlement. He demands only one thing. Rinna must formally apologize to Logan, and every other form of compensation will be rejected. Before that noble decision can burn 3 million gold. Logan interrupts. As the person losing the engagement, he wants a voice in the settlement. Privately, his position is much simpler. Take the money. 3 million equals the family's entire annual budget. Half their current funding already comes from Marion's relatives, House Kairos. If that support disappears, McLean goes bankrupt. Throwing away this chance for pride seems completely insane. Logan tells Patrick that he wishes to accept House Wolf's terms and compensation. His father demands to know whether Logan intends to make him break his word. Logan understands the pressure on Patrick. Even without further advancement, his father remains a high-ranking knight. Unfortunately, that achievement carries limited weight against the kingdom's greater powers. If Logan cannot navigate one hostile negotiation, he has no chance against the disasters ahead. Patrick insists House McLean is not poor enough to sell its honor. Logan takes a long breath and explains that they are exactly that poor. The family currently owes the bank 3 million gold. Annual interest consumes roughly another 150,000. Without Kairos money, they would have collapsed long ago. In blunt terms, they may be the kingdom's grandest family of beggars. They also owe more than 2 million to the very crown they serve as territorial lords. Accepting nothing but an apology could create a different humiliation. People may say McLean bowed before House Wolf and received nothing in return. Rinna objects that House Wolf is neither unreasonable nor disrespectful. Logan asks whether she hears the irony. She arrived without warning to cancel their marriage, yet now lectures him about rational behavior. His certainty comes from a memory she does not know he possesses. In his first life, Logan believed Rinna's sadness was genuine. That belief survived until their final private meeting. Rinna thanked him for coming, and suggested they make one final memory before separating. Convinced his life as a young master was already collapsing, Logan begged her to escape with him before morning. Her answer was a knife thrown toward his face. Logan drew his sword to defend himself. Rinna tore her own clothes, mocked the idea that someone like him deserved her, and ordered him to understand his place. She ridiculed him for carrying a sword after losing to a child. Then, with a storm raging outside, she began screaming. Rinna accused Logan of becoming violent and trying to exploit her. His drawn sword made the lie easy to believe. Logan had already committed so many offenses that even his own family refused to trust him. House McLean ended up apologizing to House Wolf and paying an enormous settlement. That betrayal destroyed Logan's trust in women for years. Now he sees Rinna's tears for what they are and makes himself one promise. This time, she will not leave House McLean without paying the price. With that memory settled, Logan returns to the larger problem, changing how his own family sees him. Logan originally planned to repair his reputation slowly and let the household change with him. The confrontation with Dominan proves that approach will take too long. Soldiers ignored attacks on Logan's authority, and rumors about his loss to Ronian spread freely while he trained. Winning approval from people like that will not save anyone. The regional war begins in 9 months, and Logan's popularity matters far less than preserving House McLean. He tells Rinna that he accepts House Wolf's compensation, even if his own family opposes him. Rinna falls silent, and Patrick demands to know how his son dares challenge him. Logan refuses to settle for empty apologies. Honor bought with words carried away by the wind is worth exactly as much as those words. Rinna quickly claims House Wolf will respect whatever the head of McLean decides. Then she asks Patrick for his answer. Logan recognizes the maneuver immediately. She wants to protect her father's reputation, and the possibility of actually losing 3 million terrifies her. Patrick declares that a sincere apology will satisfy him as House McLean's representative. However, Logan will decide whether Rinna's apology is sincere. Marion reacts angrily, while Patrick warns his son to consider the precedent. Accepting gold for humiliation could teach future enemies that McLean honor has a price. Logan still refuses to yield. Since he is the one whose engagement is ending, he formally accepts House Wolf's payment. The decision shocks Marion and visibly unsettles Rinna. Patrick looks at his son with open disappointment. He believed Logan had improved, but now thinks the boy has somehow become worse. Worse still, Patrick blames himself for failing to teach him honor. Logan does not argue. Everything he is doing serves the family, even if his father cannot see it yet. Once the compensation reaches his room, someone knocks. Logan expects Rick, but Dwayne Filsner enters instead. House McLean's financial advisor has spent years managing a territory whose budget shrinks faster than his patience. Soldiers demand weapons, servants need winter supplies, and every shortage sends him begging to wealthier relatives. At times, Dwayne cannot tell whether he manages finances or leads the kingdom's beggars. If McLean were not his home, he would have resigned years ago. Now 3 million gold offers the first chance to breathe comfortably for a while. Only one obstacle remains, the foolish young master currently holding it. Dwayne decides Logan simply needs encouragement to share. He claims he stopped by to congratulate Logan on yesterday's remarkable conduct. Standing firm against unfair outside pressure, Dwayne says, proves Logan deserves recognition as the family's future heir. In his imagination, the neglected young man is already melting beneath this rare praise. Taking the gold should be embarrassingly easy. Logan's expression does not move. Dwayne keeps going. 3 million during a crisis is rain over a desert, and Logan's brilliance has finally allowed the family to breathe. Logan calmly asks why the family feels relieved when the money belongs to him. That answer nearly kills the entire sales pitch. Dwayne imagines Logan wasting every coin on himself, but 20 years of financial humiliation have trained him for worse. He changes tactics and begins crying. Even Logan is caught off guard enough to ask whether the estate is truly in such terrible condition. Dwayne explains that House McLean owes Cooper's Bank 3 million gold. Before he can mention the annual interest of 150,000, Logan finishes the number for him. Dwayne is shocked that the young master already knows. Logan points out that harvest season should cover the interest. Dwayne counters that administering barren territory is expensive, and the budget remains painfully tight. A small contribution would solve several immediate problems. Logan cuts him off. The refusal confuses Dwayne. He thought Logan opposed Patrick because he cared about the family. Logan confirms that he does. The gold will support House McLean, but it will not vanish into today's operating costs. He is preparing for what comes next. Dwayne's frustration rises. He wants the money handed over immediately. Logan asks what paying every debt would actually accomplish. Dwayne promises a healthier budget and easier management for several years. Logan asks the question Dwayne has avoided. What happens after those years? Without anything valuable to sell, McLean will borrow again and return to the same disaster. Paying the debt alone preserves the cycle. Logan intends to break it, and his plan requires capital. Dwayne stares at him, wondering whether this calculating heir can possibly be the same spoiled child he knew. Logan offers a deal. If Dwayne handles one request, part of the money can support current family expenses. Dwayne immediately asks what he needs. Logan wants mercenaries. Later, Rick finds his master preparing to leave yet again. Logan has barely returned from isolated training, so Rick demands an explanation. Logan says he is going out to earn money. Rick points toward the fortune he already possesses. Logan answers that it is nowhere near enough. Patrick will never approve another departure while the castle remains tense. Logan has accounted for that problem by deciding not to ask. He will leave quietly. Rick is horrified, but Logan has no time to repair a reputation that may never recover. If the household will not become his strength, he must gather strength elsewhere. His previous exile at least taught him how the outside world moves. That knowledge gives him a first target, one particular man he needs to find. Rick tries blocking the escape and warns that becoming a runaway will solve nothing. When reason fails, he tells Logan to step over him if he truly intends to go. Logan appears entirely willing to consider the suggestion. He assures Rick that nobody will blame him. A letter to Patrick will explain everything. Rick asks what kind of explanation could possibly achieve that, but Logan only smiles. For one tragic moment, Rick mistakes that smile for reassurance. After Logan disappears, Rick delivers the letter to Patrick. The patriarch's fury could make a battlefield seem peaceful. Logan's message respectfully explains that heartbreak from the failed engagement has forced him to seek fresh air. He promises to return soon and signs his full name. With his master gone and the excuse somehow worse than silence, Rick can only cry and pray for Logan's return. 2 centuries ago, House McLean controlled lands stretching deep into neighboring provinces. People revered the family as rulers of Grandia's southwestern region. 3 generations of useless ancestors dismantled that legacy before Patrick inherited it. Their enormous grain belt, once called the McLean Plains, passed to a powerful vassal. Other fertile lands were divided among competing houses, pushing McLean toward dry ground near the southern mountains. There are no valuable regional goods and no copper mines, so even victory in the coming war would leave the family dependent on House Kairos. Breaking that cycle requires far more than Logan's 3 million gold. Fortunately, he knows exactly who can help him create it. Logan enters Kale, the largest trading city in Grandia. Merchants fill the streets with offers ranging from jewelry and armor to fresh produce. The crowded markets make McLean's isolation painfully obvious. According to Logan's memories, the man he wants spent his youth somewhere nearby. Philip Claude will eventually become the Golden Beetle, one of the richest merchants in the Ares Empire. That empire rewards ability above birth, allowing talent to earn power regardless of nationality, age, or gender. Philip becomes its greatest foreign success. He builds the continent's largest arms business and earns the title of Grandia's trader, while secretly financing the miracle that restores its independence. At present, that future tycoon is sitting broke in the middle of a street. Philip has just lost his business to a scam and sees no path forward. Logan knew the company collapsed, but witnessing the aftermath is much worse than hearing about it. As Philip begins considering suicide, Logan approaches and confirms his name. The young merchant studies Logan's old armor, red eyes, and fixed stare. Nothing about this stranger suggests a safe business meeting. Logan asks for 1 minute to talk, which only makes Philip wonder how he was found. Then Philip notices something familiar in Logan's gaze: greed. A merchant sees that expression often enough to recognize it instantly. Combined with the armor and suspicious timing, Philip decides Logan must belong to a mercenary gang collecting his debts. Before Logan can explain, Philip blurts out that payment is not due yet. The sale of his remaining property will finish in 3 days, so the collectors should return then. Logan says he came for no debt. Philip keeps barking the same defense like a cornered dog. Eventually, Logan manages to say the word investment. Philip goes silent. If this man is not collecting money, then he must be insane enough to invest in a complete failure. Suspicion remains, but desperation makes him ask how much Logan intends to offer. Logan turns the question around. Whatever Philip needs to clear his debts and rebuild, Logan will provide. Philip examines the dirt on his armor and concludes that the stranger traveled from somewhere distant. Then he spots the emblem and believes he has solved everything. He calls Logan a disgusting fraud. Anyone attempting this scam should prepare better than the men who humiliated Philip before. The crest belongs to Baron McLean territory, whose nobles survive by borrowing from richer relatives. A family unable to pay its own debts cannot fund a merchant. Philip even warns that impersonating nobility could earn Logan an execution. Worse, he chose a victim too broke to steal from. Logan is more impressed than offended. At his lowest point, Philip still reads details quickly and reaches sensible conclusions. The future merchant emperor is already visible beneath the panic. Unfortunately, calming him remains difficult, while he loudly announces that he cannot even afford food. Logan finally demonstrates his aura. Philip reconsiders immediately. Someone talented enough to awaken this young would be wasting a priceless future on a cheap street scam. Philip apologizes for his sensitivity and asks what Logan wants. The answer is permanent employment, with every existing debt paid in advance. Doubt returns until Logan estimates Philip owes roughly 250,000 gold. He offers to cover it and provide another 300,000 for rebuilding. Then Logan reveals the money. To Philip, the dangerous lunatic instantly resembles an angel. They sign a magically enforced contract. Its central condition is brutal. If Philip deliberately harms his master, he will suffer pain resembling his soul being torn apart. The formal language somehow makes it sound even worse. The mage sealing the agreement explains his escape options. Philip can awaken and reach high-ranking knight, hire a 4-circle mage, or pay someone hundreds of times the contract's value to break it. None of those choices are remotely realistic. After dismissing them, the mage cheerfully invites Philip to visit again. Philip begins wondering whether rescue and enslavement just happened during the same appointment. One page of this contract costs as much as 30 slaves, and Logan paid that fortune to secure his new employee. Logan admits their partnership is still new. If he is risking enormous capital, he needs a reasonable guarantee. Once trust exists between them, the contract will be removed. He offers Philip his hand. The agreement contains almost no useful deadlines or operating terms, but Philip currently has no better option than trusting him. He accepts the handshake and asks what their first business will be. Logan wants monster meat, and Philip immediately calls him insane. The reaction is reasonable. Monster blood and flesh contain poison, so civilized people usually burn every carcass. A few years from now, that assumption will change. Researchers discover that ordinary ingredients can neutralize the blood toxin, and starving regions begin consuming monsters safely. During one harsh winter, people eating keel monster meat recover from severe malnutrition. Even patients left infertile by injuries begin showing improvement. The Royal Magic Tower confirms the results the following year. Demand becomes so extreme that the keel disappears across the continent. Humanity discovers a treatment for infertility and promptly eats the entire species. Logan knows the discovery is coming. If he buys enough meat before anyone else understands its value, 3 million in profit will be the beginning, not the limit. Walking beside a man with this plan, Philip briefly wonders whether running away would improve his future. At a tavern, Logan finally explains the scale of their first purchase. He wants 1 million gold invested in monster meat. Philip assumes the magical contract has attached him to a lunatic. Logan promises the return will justify an even larger expense, but Philip demands real numbers. Keel carcasses currently have no market value and are usually burned. Transporting one carcass across the kingdom would cost roughly 200 gold, although moving them in bulk reduces the price per unit. Logan's attention to transportation fees impresses him, but the strategy still looks wrong. Logan appears ready to hire mercenary guilds for a kingdom-wide hunt. Philip offers a far cheaper solution. Merchant guilds will retrieve anything when profit exists, including waste destined for a furnace. Offer roughly the price of beef, and traders will gather every available keel carcass, butcher it, and deliver it ready for storage. Logan realizes his investment is producing returns already. Philip tells him to stop worrying about money and leave the transactions to a professional. His own future now depends on Logan's success anyway. Logan hands over another list: ironwood cartridges, springs, adhesive, and several related materials. Philip asks whether his new master plans to open a toy factory. Logan has something far less harmless in mind. Those components create weapons used during Grandia's invasion in his previous life. In the right conditions, one ordinary soldier carrying them could restrain a knight. Dwayne is already recruiting mercenaries, and arming them with future weapons could give McLean the advantage it needs. First, Logan needs a craftsman to build them, and an instructor to train the force. 2 days later, he reaches Heron, the city of mercenaries. His first target is Kaisalon, an A-rank fighter Logan wants as an instructor. Kaisalon claims he has never trained anyone successfully. Logan explains that the students will only be C-rank mercenaries. The veteran still resists. He has advised a few younger fighters, but that hardly makes him a professional teacher. Logan knows better because Kaisalon served beside him in the first timeline. The man can handle virtually every weapon, excels with horses, and possesses a rare gift for training others. After an injury eventually forces his retirement, Kaisalon's unit becomes more skilled than almost any rival company. The talent exists. Motivation is the missing piece. Logan offers 4,000 gold. Kaisalon declines. 6,000 changes nothing, and 7,000 earns another stubborn lecture about things money cannot buy. Logan raises the offer to 8,000. Apparently, 8,000 can buy one of those things. Kaisalon accepts and thanks him in advance. Logan identifies himself as House McLean's eldest son and asks whether the veteran is curious about the mercenaries. Kaisalon says the reason is irrelevant as long as payment arrives. While crossing the city, they pass a man whipping captives and threatening to kill anyone who slows down. Heron is famous for mercenaries and slaves, so Kaisalon warns Logan that such scenes are common. Logan already knows. In fact, the slave market contains his next purchase. A merchant mistakes him for an inexperienced noble and advertises unbeatable prices. The sales pitch dies the moment he recognizes Kaisalon. Logan quietly decides hiring the veteran was worth every coin. They stop at a shop guarded more heavily than its neighbors. An elderly dealer greets Logan and asks whether he understands what kind of merchandise waits inside. Logan asks for a dwarf. The dealer explains that races arriving from other worlds are rare and carefully maintained. He proudly displays 2 elves whose capture was supposedly extremely difficult. Logan does not spare them a glance. He points toward the chained dwarf at the back. The dealer claims this prisoner is exceptional. Even among a race famous for craftsmanship, the dwarf has reached expert level. Logan is genuinely surprised. He expected natural skill, since dwarves build, repair, and invent throughout their lives. An expert exceeds every requirement for the weapon project. The starting price is 200,000 gold. Logan looks the dealer over and asks whether he appears stupid. Fear immediately removes 50,000 from the price. Kaisalon watches the negotiation with new respect. The dwarf calls Logan's method harsh, but asks where they are going. Logan names the McLean estate in the southwest and explains that the dwarf will build what he requests. The prisoner accepts without argument, exactly as Logan expected. Dwarves may be born craftsmen, but enslaved craftsmen rarely create anything great. Skill without purpose produces lifeless work. Logan wants to restore that purpose. He promises freedom in the mountains after 20 years of sincere effort. For a dwarf's lifespan, 20 years is hardly an eternity. The offer thrills the prisoner, who begins thanking him. Their conversation is interrupted when another slave breaks free and runs. The escape lasts only moments before a soldier catches him. Logan watches the man struggle and realizes the face is familiar. The captured runaway has blue hair and mismatched blue eyes. One look finally unlocks Logan's memory, and he accidentally wonders aloud how the noble killer ended up here. Kaisalon has no idea what he means. In Logan's first life, one aura user became infamous across the kingdom. The man began as a slave, escaped after murdering his masters, then vanished for 10 years and returned with power beyond ordinary humanity. Killing every noble he encountered became his life's purpose, earning him the name Noble Killer. That escape happens roughly 1 year after Logan becomes a mercenary. According to the timeline, the future killer is still a child and still enslaved. Saving him now could place a future aura user beside House McLean. The problem is that this particular asset grows into an unstoppable murderer. Logan decides that if the boy ever turns against his allies, confinement remains an option. The slave owner raises his weapon again. Logan draws his sword and blocks the strike aimed at the child's leg. Seeing the McLean crest, the man quickly abandons his aggression and welcomes Logan as a customer. He apologizes for the scene and claims unruly merchandise requires firm training. Logan says he wants to buy the 2 children. The dealer warns that both are rare because of their unusual coloring and demands at least 10,000 gold each. A healthy young slave normally costs around 300. These 2 are malnourished, and one is barely alive. Logan knows the noble killer is worth far more than 10,000, but the dealer has no idea. More importantly, Logan has no intention of rewarding this man's cruelty. He offers 500 for each child, already above the price of a healthy slave. The dealer complains that he would not recover his investment. Logan asks whether the man truly believes he knows nothing about market prices. Fear settles the negotiation very quickly. The owner has endured enough problems from Victor and accepts the offer. Kaisalon carries the injured child away and marvels at the speed of his recovery. The wound should have kept him unconscious. Logan pretends the healing is ordinary, while secretly feeding force into the boy's body. The technique surpasses the magic of many low-ranking priests. For one moment, Logan suspects Victor noticed the hidden aura even though Kaisalon sensed nothing. He dismisses it as coincidence. Victor suddenly leaps down and attacks him. The attempt ends before a fist gets close. Logan catches the boy by the throat and asks whether this is courage or simple stupidity. Victor may be improving, but Logan is not a helpless slave trader. Fighting spirit is useful only when aimed at the correct enemy. Logan makes this the boy's final warning. Obedience will guarantee safety for Victor and his younger sister. Another attack will place both of them in danger. Once released, Victor hears the real offer. Logan intends to raise him as a knight. Victor asks whether he is serious. Knights are honored nobles, Logan explains, so that future requires freedom from slavery. The same freedom will include his sister. Victor looks at the girl and promises to do anything necessary. Logan's suspicion is confirmed. The sister is the anchor capable of restraining the future noble killer's violent nature. Training will begin after they reach McLean territory. Before leaving, Logan calls Hamar forward and prepares another magical contract. If the dwarf serves him for 20 years, Logan will send him back to the mountains and his own people. Hamar can barely believe the promise is genuine. Logan reminds him that spoken promises are easily carried away, so the agreement will be written and sealed. He asks whether Hamar has any objection. The dwarf accepts with complete gratitude and promises to perform any work requested. Logan privately considers himself the greater winner. A contract is a small price for restoring an expert craftsman's motivation. The trip has delivered everything Logan wanted, and more. He secured a trainer, a dwarven expert, and the future noble killer. Preparations for the regional war are advancing beautifully. Back home, the situation looks less beautiful. Rumors about Logan's behavior have spread across McLean territory during his absence. His already damaged reputation is sinking into unexplored depths, while Rick desperately attempts to contain it. The servant has one question repeating in his head. What is Logan planning now? When Logan finally returns, nobody is happier than Rick. Logan casually asks how he has been. Rick asks whether that question is meant as a joke. He nearly erupts while listing the new rumors. People say Logan is a depraved monster, spending 150,000 gold on monster flesh. Philip recently summoned every merchant he could find and announced that he was buying carcasses in young Master Logan McLean's name. That scandal joined earlier gossip about the broken engagement and claims that Logan practically stole the compensation from his fiancée. Philip has even started spreading strange stories about monster meat to attract more sellers. Logan's business plan is working. His public image, meanwhile, may require burial. Philip knows nothing about Logan's first life and currently sees his master as a random wealthy madman. Still, the rumors create a useful market. He drives the purchase price down to 1 gold per kilogram, while making merchants chase the deal like starving men after fresh bread. The logic is simple. Nobody refuses payment for garbage they plan to burn. Philip announces that anyone wanting money should collect every scrap of monster flesh available. The aggressive offer works. Traders begin collecting carcasses, and stories about Logan spread throughout the city's criminal district. Logan considers Philip's work excellent. Rick cannot understand how he is still laughing. Logan points toward the exhausted faces of everyone returning with him. Whatever rumors Rick heard, his companions have probably endured worse. He promises the scandal will end soon. Rick warns him against being too relaxed, because Patrick is waiting. Inside the Patriarch's office, Patrick asks whether running away was enjoyable. Logan calls the trip worthwhile. His father has heard the stories and describes several decisions as completely insane, though apparently productive. Logan dismisses the rumors as meaningless lies and says he regrets nothing. Marion interrupts, reminding Patrick that Logan has no sense of his position or the damage his behavior causes their name. Logan cuts her off and says she is exaggerating. The broken engagement money was his to spend. Marion immediately demands that Patrick hear what his son just said. Patrick ends the argument and asks her to leave. He wants one honest conversation with Logan. The warning is direct. This is the final chance Patrick will offer. He asks what is happening inside Logan's head. Logan knows his father cannot overlook everything again, yet says the explanation would not make sense. Patrick wonders whether Logan is the one refusing to be understood. People call him violent, cruel, obsessed with money, and possibly insane. Patrick asks how long he is expected to keep hiding those problems. If disaster comes later, he at least wants to tell Logan's late mother that he tried everything possible. The reference to his mother shocks Logan. Patrick never spoke about her in the first timeline, not even during the banishment. Perhaps his father has not given up on him yet. Logan asks for 1 year. Within that time, he will prove there was a reason behind every strange decision. He begs Patrick to make this the final opportunity. After Logan leaves, Patrick remains alone. A favor between father and son should not feel this formal. Still, if Logan proves nothing after 1 year, Patrick must act as head of House McLean before acting as a father. Looking at the portrait of Logan's mother, he apologizes for failing their son. Patrick promised to protect and raise him properly, yet his own neglect helped everything collapse. In the castle hallway, Logan encounters Ronian and immediately notices a change. His younger brother has awakened force. Ronian says the answer became obvious when he caught Logan so quickly. At only 14, he has reached a milestone that originally waited until the regional war. Logan is delighted by the improvement and confused when Ronian gives him the credit. The knights tried preventing Ronian from finding Logan after his return. His power awakened during the struggle, and he defeated them while forcing his way through. Logan laughs and praises him. Once Ronian's core stabilizes, teaching him the divine sword's secrets could make the boy far stronger than he ever became before. South of the estate, Logan meets Dwayne near a cottage. All 35 C-rank mercenaries he requested have gathered there. They are also furious. 10 days have passed since their summons, and none of them has met the employer. Some suspect a scam. One man argues that a minor baron's family would never provoke the mercenary guild unless everyone involved had lost their minds. Another reminds him that the rumors surrounding Logan are already heavy enough to make anything possible. They mock the young noble's armor and sword, saying he is playing soldier. Logan hears every word. Men who fight for their next meal will not follow polite requests. Unless he establishes control immediately, none of them will listen. He confronts the loudest mercenary and asks whether armor and a sword look amusing. The man cannot understand how Logan heard him from that distance. Logan says mockery is acceptable when supported by talent. Unfortunately, a low C-rank mercenary has very little talent to support anything. The insults work. Logan invites him forward and offers a wager. Land 1 strike, and the mercenary may leave immediately with a full year's pay. Logan places his noble honor behind the promise and names everyone present as witnesses. The man eagerly accepts, certain Logan cannot retreat now. He tries intimidating the young master with sheer size. The crowd wonders whether he has already reached B rank. He has not, though some believe this job will promote him. Logan finally understands the confidence. The mercenary even offers him the first attack, claiming he has held a sword longer than Logan has been alive. Logan warns that generosity will become regret. The man laughs and asks whether the young master needs an additional handicap. He is about to learn that Logan already gave him one. Logan gathers force into his fist and punches the mercenary squarely in the face. Teeth scatter through the air before the man reaches the ground. The duel ends with 1 strike. The remaining mercenaries stare in disbelief while Logan rolls his shoulder. He asks whether anyone else feels inspired to keep talking. Nobody accepts the invitation. Awakening force at his age already seems absurd. Using it this cleanly is worse. Even Kaisalon is surprised. He always sensed something unusual about Logan, but never imagined this level of strength. Logan announces that the commentary portion of their meeting is over and formally introduces himself as the man who summoned them. The mercenaries naturally want to know why a noble spent money hiring them. Logan intends to turn the group into mounted crossbowmen. Dwayne, Kaisalon, and the recruits all look confused. Someone points out that they will spend the entire battle reloading. Kaisalon quietly explains that crossbows are terrible cavalry weapons. Logan agrees. They hit much harder than ordinary bows, but an inexperienced rider needs over a minute to reload. Carrying several loaded weapons only delays the moment his firepower disappears. That limitation is exactly why Logan's order makes no sense, at least for now. He asks Kaisalon to train the men properly before judging the plan. The reason will become obvious once their equipment arrives. These mounted crossbowmen will become a major McLean force whose value extends beyond the coming war. Kaisalon remains uncertain, but accepts the assignment. Several days later, Logan reviews the recruitment results. Out of 350 mercenaries, 312 passed his basic qualification test. The number is sufficient. Hamar interrupts to ask about the drawing in his hands. Logan explains that it is the crossbow design he once built. The sketch may look rough to an expert, but Logan carried this weapon for decades in his former life, and remembers nearly every important component. Hamar studies the mechanism. A cartridge at the rear stores bolts, reloads automatically, and allows 3 consecutive shots. He calls the inventor an idiot. Logan admits the idea belongs to him. Hamar immediately changes idiotic to brilliant, though the design still has serious flaws. A string wound through that structure will snap under pressure. The wooden box at the rear also makes aiming uncomfortable. Hamar asks how Logan intends to solve those problems. Logan says that is the craftsman's job. The dwarf's expression darkens, so Logan claims he was joking. He suggests shortening the bolt, which reduces the cartridge's size. Hamar proposes something better. Instead of forcing the weapon to reload itself, they can build removable cartridges prepared in advance and replace one after every shot. Calling them magazines will keep the terminology simple. The idea shocks Hamar as much as the original drawing. Even a skilled crossbowman rarely fires twice within a minute. A magazine-fed weapon would belong to another age, which is accurate, because Logan stole it from the future. Hamar lists the deceptively simple materials: a spring cartridge, ironwood, adhesive, and a bowstring. Turning them into a working system is a worthy challenge, so Hamar agrees to try. Logan immediately asks for a completion date. Hamar cannot believe he wants a deadline for a weapon the dwarf has never seen. Logan points out that humans eventually built it. Hamar demands to know who and where. Logan refuses to explain and suggests surrender if the task exceeds his ability. 1 month, Hamar declares, and he will produce something even better. Logan quietly enjoys discovering how easy it is to weaponize dwarven pride. Elsewhere on the training ground, Victor runs until his body begins slowing. Logan warns that he can do better, and the boy forces himself faster. Since arriving, Victor has mostly eaten and slept for several days. Proper food alone has transformed him. When Logan finally orders a break, Victor's little sister runs over. Buying these children looks more valuable with every hour. Victor is only 14, and smaller than others his age, yet he completed 20 kilometers without stopping. His determination is even more impressive than his body. The boy was not born to become the noble killer. Logan increasingly suspects that whatever happened to his sister created that monster. Rest ends quickly. Logan tosses Victor a sword and begins teaching Grandia's basic sword technique, the foundation every aspiring knight learns. He demonstrates one clean cut through the air. Victor is exhausted enough to want unconsciousness, but good meals and a safe bed are worth the pain. He grips the weapon, copies Logan, and reproduces the strike perfectly. The movement is exact, so is every breath supporting it. Victor achieved that after watching once. Even Ronian did not show this degree of natural imitation at the same age. Logan explains the standard ahead. Build enough endurance to perform the technique perfectly more than 1,000 times without stopping, and Victor may consider himself a knight. The boy's eyes brighten at the title. When Logan asks whether he can accomplish it, Victor answers immediately. Any other training need can be taken to Rick, who will arrange what is possible. Victor requests only one thing: keep his sister safe. Nothing else matters to him. The answer confirms Logan's judgment. Victor cannot join an immediate war, but he can become one of McLean's greatest future strengths. The mercenary unit and Hamar's weapon may transform the coming conflict. Still, Logan cannot depend completely on unfinished inventions and newly trained men. Hamar might fail to build the crossbow. The mercenaries might fail to master it. Too much of the plan now rests in other hands. Logan needs one more path that depends on his own growth. He visits Patrick's office and asks to join the family's night training. Patrick approves the request, and Commander Hankley introduces Logan at the Night Order's training ground. The knights immediately begin whispering. After defeating Dominan, the young master probably thinks their regiment is another private game. Hankley remembers discussing the request with Patrick. The commander warned that Logan's presence would upset the knights. Patrick asked for no special treatment. His son should be handled as harshly as any other beginner. That instruction is easier to give than follow. Logan remains the Lord's eldest son, and Hankley would have preferred an order to treat him gently. Logan notices the concern and offers a solution. If he fails any exercise during the next week, he will withdraw quietly and never cause Hankley trouble again. The commander accepts and decides the coming week will be 3 times harder than normal. Soon, armored knights are running while carrying partners on their backs. Hankley shouts that cavalrymen must understand what their horses endure while hauling fully armored riders across battlefields. The knights finally understand the full equipment. They also blame the entire nightmare on Logan. Bets begin over how long the troublemaker survives. 1 day seems likely, 2 seems generous, and 3 sounds impossible. Logan races past them at full speed. The exhausted knights stare, and even Hankley loses his composure. Logan makes the situation worse by smiling. At this rate, the entire order will collapse before their newest member slows down. Hankley calls a 10-minute break and checks whether Logan feels tired. What he actually wants is one honest complaint that can justify ending this madness. Logan says the exercise was easy. The commander asks whether he understood correctly. Logan praises the routine and says daily training like this would make everyone stronger. He is already looking forward to the next session. 2 knights lie nearby with the expressions of men reconsidering military service. Hankley realizes his plan attacked the wrong victims. Later that night, Logan finds himself alone on the training ground. The others have gone home, leaving him to meditate. Joining the order is insurance against every other strategy failing. If the future still collapses, Logan will fight beside these knights on the front line, so building relationships now may save lives. The training also develops what meditation cannot. His core continues growing, and his endurance has improved enough that fatigue barely lingers. Still, physical conditioning remains essential. That is where the Night Order becomes useful. Logan draws his sword and releases a swift blade of force. All of that power comes from a single star core. Reaching 2 stars should place him near a high-ranking knight like Patrick. The following morning brings a less successful test. Logan examines Hamar's crossbow prototypes and declares every one a failure. They fire once, lack the requested string mechanism, and show no sign of an integrated magazine. Hamar's anger rises. Logan apologizes for being harsh, and the dwarf agrees that even a master should never insult a craftsman's pride. Then Logan adds that if this is truly Hamar's limit, nothing can be done. The dwarf nearly detonates. Logan keeps applying pressure. Weeks have passed without a proper result. Perhaps he expected too much, misjudged Hamar's talent, and wasted his money. The provocation lands perfectly. Hamar demands 1 more month, and promises to return with an invention worthy of the investment. In fury, he smashes the prototype in his hands and storms away. Logan watches him go with a hard smile. Anger will force Hamar to abandon every compromise and rebuild the weapon from nothing. A little more pressure may produce something extraordinary. 1 month later, Hamar demonstrates the improved crossbow. The compact weapon fires 2 bolts together. Logan is speechless. It carries 1 fewer shot than requested, but can be controlled with 1 hand and accepts replaceable magazines. Reloading and firing require only 2 seconds. The range is shorter than the weapon Logan remembers, and the frame is smaller, which for mounted soldiers are both improvements. Hamar has exceeded every expectation, with months still remaining before the regional war. When the dwarf asks whether Logan is listening, Logan lifts him into the air and praises the achievement. He celebrates dwarven craftsmanship and wishes long life upon the entire race. Hamar glances around in horror, demands to be lowered, and reminds Logan that he is not a child. Logan finally sets him down and prepares 1 question. Hamar asks what it is. The unsettling young master returns immediately. He needs 400 crossbows within 2 months. Soon afterward, Logan places the new weapons in the hands of Kaisalon and the mercenary unit. The mercenaries are stunned by the crossbow's range and rapid follow-up shots. Kaisalon keeps staring at the weapon, trying to understand how a front-loaded design can deliver this much power and speed. In the hands of 300 mounted soldiers, the possibilities are frightening. Kaisalon finally admits that Logan's plan was brilliant from the beginning. Logan accepts the praise while remembering how much Hamar endured to make it possible. Even with additional craftsmen, Logan never expected the dwarf to finish 2 months early and produce 100 extra weapons. Hamar's expert title was no exaggeration. Logan considers equipping McLean's regular knights and soldiers as well. Cost makes that impossible for now, and wider distribution risks exposing the technology. The secret stays with the mercenary unit. He orders Kaisalon to arm the men and clear monsters beyond the territory. Kaisalon initially calls the mission impossible, but Logan trusts the unit's new firepower. The veteran concedes that success may be possible. That answer is not enough. Logan tells him to find a method, because everything else is worthless if the soldiers cannot use the weapons under real pressure. Kaisalon understands the hidden purpose. Nobody builds an army like this merely to hunt monsters. Logan is preparing for war. Meanwhile, the Knight Order has developed its own opinion of him. Knights whisper about his absurd stamina and wonder whether the trait runs in Patrick's bloodline. Others assume a son resembling the patriarch must naturally excel with a sword. Dominan's defeat complicates that theory. Logan lost to Ronian before awakening, yet he has survived more than a month of the Order's punishing routine. The exercise originally designed to drive him away has become a permanent standard. It is exhausting, but far more useful than ordinary running. Lower-ranked knights, who once avoided serious training, now push themselves to keep pace. Carrying one another in full armor also teaches them sympathy for their horses and strengthens bonds inside the unit. Hankley continued the routine only because Logan refused to quit. He never expected so many benefits. The young master has somehow become the Order's lucky charm. At night, Logan pairs physical exhaustion with meditation. The body is driven to its limit, then the inner mind stimulates the core. Repeating both methods in harmony finally produces visible progress. His power begins changing. If his combat ability continues rising this quickly, Logan may surpass every monster he encountered during his first life. Then the core expands. Force surges through him as the single star becomes 2. Logan now possesses the foundation required for the next divine sword technique, Killing Iron Cut. The first secret already gave him power beyond expectations. The second should be far more dangerous. Master it before the war, and even a high-ranking knight will no longer feel untouchable. While Logan grows stronger, Kaisalon tests the mercenary unit against a goblin swarm. The riders fire together and erase the front line instantly. One man marvels at the lack of recoil. His bolt passes through one skull and buries itself in another. More than 100 monsters disappear in under 10 seconds. Old habits from ordinary crossbows have vanished, and magazine changes become faster with every encounter. Pushing this deep into monster territory was worth the risk. Kaisalon asks whether Logan is satisfied. Logan answers that he is, to a degree. Their first hunt was complete chaos, but the unit now moves like a real force. The veteran finally asks what all this preparation is for. No mercenary company he knows carries firepower this excessive. Unless Logan intends to exterminate every monster on the continent, there must be another target. Before Logan can answer, a rider arrives at full speed carrying Rick's letter. Count Vic Tesseron formally challenged McLean to war yesterday. Inside McLean's war room, Patrick and the family leaders watch a crystal projection. Count Tesseron invokes an ancient grievance, claiming one of his ancestors was unjustly killed and holding House McLean responsible. Patrick is speechless. The nobles exchange uneasy looks. An old grudge may explain hostility, but nobody believes it justifies a war. Hankley and Marion ask Patrick for his response. Tesseron's Knight Order alone fields more soldiers than McLean's entire Knight force. Even with Patrick fighting personally, victory looks unlikely. One noble suggests holding the city and requesting reinforcements. That would invite enemy force users into crowded streets and turn the city into a slaughterhouse. Another proposes sending an envoy to negotiate peace. Patrick silences the room. Royal authority may have weakened, but Tesseron declared war without requesting permission from the crown. An illegal attack prepared this thoroughly leaves no room for peaceful settlement. He orders every commander to prepare for war and produce a winning plan. Objections are no longer useful. Amid the tension, someone asks whether Logan will fight. Patrick confirms it. Marion adds that Ronian has awakened and is now old enough to carry his share of responsibility. Rick suddenly realizes Logan is still away from the castle and sends a rider after him. When the message arrives, Logan immediately sees a problem. In his first life, this war began 2 months later. Something has accelerated the timeline. The messenger explains that Count Vic ignored every custom and launched his attack immediately after the declaration. Logan must hurry if he wants to reach the conflict before its middle. Kaisalon and the mercenaries announce that they can march at any moment. Their lack of surprise catches Logan's attention. Kaisalon explains that mercenaries without a war are often tempted to start one. Naturally, receiving such a powerful weapon left them eager to fire it. The confidence borders on arrogance, but the men earned part of it. Months of training turned them into a unit capable of erasing monster hordes. Whether the war begins today or 2 months from now changes nothing. Their task is still victory. Logan orders the force toward the McLean Plains, certain they now possess enough strength to decide the battle. The enemy reaches McLean territory the day after declaring war. Their numbers exceed every estimate. Hankley reports 100 knights, more than 1,000 regular soldiers, and nearly 10,000 conscripts. This is not a border clash. Tesseron has brought everything. Patrick cannot understand the scale. Count Vic has also dragged thousands of conscripts into a private dispute between lords, so Raymond Tesseron must have a deeper reason for pushing this far. The next report makes matters worse. House Kairos refuses to send its promised troops. Marion insists there must be a mistake. She and Dwayne verified every arrangement in advance. Their preparations should have prevented exactly this betrayal. Patrick has no choice. He orders Hankley to gather every person capable of holding a weapon. House Kairos was their most trusted support, and its withdrawal has left McLean exposed. McLean assembles 53 knights, 552 regular soldiers, and 4,418 conscripts. The total force reaches 5,023, less than half Tesseron's army. On the battlefield, soldiers begin asking where Logan is. He has been absent for too long. Some decide he heard about the invasion and ran. Ronian confronts them immediately. His brother would never abandon the family. Logan apparently expected this war and even taught Ronian a secret technique for it. Escape makes no sense. The defense only helps the rumor spread. Other soldiers hear that the Lord's eldest son vanished before battle. Patrick approaches Ronian and tells his younger son to fill Logan's place without hesitation. He does not want to believe the stories either. Belief can wait. Winning cannot. He orders the army forward to crush the invaders attacking their home. Across the field, Tesseron smiles when Patrick finally draws his sword. Count Vic calls his knights the blade of his house and challenges Patrick to face them. Patrick charges the vanguard with aura behind his strike. The advance stops cold when a shield-bearing knight absorbs the blow. Patrick stares at the man in disbelief. Rick has reached the battlefield too. Around him, soldiers are dying and bodies are being torn apart. He sees the numbers, the broken line, and the truth becoming impossible to avoid. Rick understands that McLean is losing. The difference in numbers forced servants like him into the line, yet remaining trapped there only guarantees death. An enemy soldier strikes toward his head. Rick barely avoids the blow before an ally kills the attacker and orders him back onto his feet. Rick reaches for the man's hand, desperate to thank him. An enemy knight kills the ally before the words come out. Blood splashes across Rick's face. Survival now means escaping the enemy line as quickly as possible. Then mounted soldiers appear through the field of bodies. Rick realizes Tesseron has reached their rear. McLean may be moments away from annihilation. Elsewhere, Patrick faces the trap built specifically for him. His main opponent admits the Patriarch's reputation was deserved. Their preparations were extensive, yet Patrick continues surviving explosive attacks meant to kill him. The true surprise is Tesseron's hidden high-ranking knight. The other 3 attackers appear to be at least mid-ranking. Now Patrick understands why Count Vic entered battle without fearing him. He asks whether all 4 were gathered solely to handle one man. Their leader asks whether Patrick approves of the preparation. Surrounded and unable to remain still, Patrick charges. If these knights hold him here, the rest of their force will overwhelm his order. He swears that will never happen. Patrick clashes with the high-ranking knight while a spear attacks from behind. He avoids the first ambush and condemns their complete lack of honor. The enemy does not care. One man jokes that this is Patrick's final battle, so they should let him complain. Patrick attacks again with everything he has. This time, the spear tears into his lower back and leaves a severe wound. The strategy is brutally simple. The high-ranking knight blocks Patrick's offense while the others strike from every angle. There is no clean escape from the formation. As defeat closes around him, Patrick thinks Logan may have been right to run. At least his son could survive and continue the family's legacy. Watching from a distance, Count Tesseron congratulates himself. Concealing a high-ranking knight was a brilliant decision. Once Patrick dies, McLean Castle belongs to him. Then a strange sound rises behind the army. A servant reports cavalry approaching the rear, perhaps 300 riders or more. Tesseron wonders whether McLean hid another unit. The messenger says the newcomers carry no lances. Their only weapons are small crossbows. Tesseron bursts out laughing. Crossbows belong to hunters, not cavalry. He orders the rear guard and archers to erase these fifth-rate soldiers. A bolt punches through the messenger's skull before the command finishes. Logan has reached the battlefield, and the sight before him wipes away every trace of humor. He gives the mercenaries one order: fire. A storm of bolts tears into Tesseron's formation. Knights are pierced beside ordinary troops, and hundreds fall within seconds. Steel, flesh, and rank mean very little to weapons arriving this fast. One soldier realizes that anyone who failed to raise a shield is already dead. A single second separated him from joining them. Tesseron's archers prepare an answer, but their arrows fall short. Logan's crossbows strike from beyond their range. The mercenaries reload in 2 seconds and fire again. Another section of the Count's army disappears. Tesseron watches his rear guard become wreckage and cannot understand what he is seeing. Logan's mercenaries are not using magic. Those cursed little crossbows are destroying an army by themselves. He assumes Patrick secretly created the weapons and orders every available knight toward the rear. Cavalry charges Logan's position at full speed. Logan smiles. The enemy is kindly bringing its strongest fighters directly to him. Elsewhere, Ronian faces a knight in his first real battle. He dodges an attack and earns a mocking compliment. Another soldier warns the knight to stop playing with the boy because the fight has become serious. The man insists he is already trying. Ronian may be young, but underestimating him is dangerous. Hearing that exchange forces Ronian to confront the truth. Awakening early did not make him a genius. Outside the safety of training, he is still a 14-year-old fighting experienced soldiers. Failure is impossible anyway. Too many lives depend on him, and Patrick trusted Ronian to fill Logan's place. Hesitation here would betray that trust. An opening suddenly appears. One enemy turns his back, and Ronian cannot understand why. Whatever caused it, the chance will not return. He swings with everything he has and cuts the soldier in half. The victory feels almost too easy. Then Ronian notices a crossbow bolt buried in the man's chest. He looks up and sees the real reason for the opening. Logan has arrived and is calling his name. Ronian's relief lasts only a moment. More knights charge behind Ragnar toward Logan's position under Count Vic's orders. The cavalry forms behind kite shields, creating an excellent defense against direct fire. Logan has no intention of firing directly. He orders the mercenaries to angle their crossbows toward the ground. Doubt returns to several faces until Logan smiles and names the target. Shoot the horses. Victory has never required clean hands, and the mercenaries embrace the order with matching enthusiasm. Bolts tear into the charging mounts. The entire formation collapses as horses and armored riders crash together. Logan reached Ronian in time, but Patrick remains surrounded. Winning the battlefield means nothing if the family he swore to save dies during it. He gives Kaisalan a quick order and rushes toward his father. Kaisalan protests that this was never part of the plan. Victory is already within reach, so gambling Logan's life makes no sense. One mid-ranking knight could still change everything. With no time left to argue, Kaisalan takes command and orders Gerald to cover Logan's advance through the enemy. Patrick continues fighting the high-ranking knight, and the situation has deteriorated. His opponent mocks him for charging, while knowing spears would strike from every side. Patrick barely evades another attack and jumps back for room. Something feels wrong. The enemy knights possess the advantage, yet all four fight with desperate urgency. They throw their bodies forward as though time is running out. Patrick blocks two more spears. A heartbeat later, Logan appears before him and drops two mid-ranking knights almost instantly. Patrick cannot understand how his son crossed the battlefield. Logan's mercenaries entered far behind the current position. Then he looks past the boy and sees a path made from bodies. Logan fought through all of them. Questions can wait. Patrick asks only whether Logan's arrival means McLean is winning. Logan nods. His father places a hand on his shoulder and tells him he did well. The high-ranking knight studies Logan in disbelief. A rural boy under 20 just eliminated two mid-ranking fighters together. At that age, this veteran was nearly killing himself just to earn knighthood. The comparison no longer matters. He will kill Logan here. He orders his remaining companions back into formation. Patrick believes Logan can handle most mid-ranking knights while he holds the leader. Working together gives them a genuine chance. Logan has another plan. He extends one arm before Patrick and declares that the high-ranking knight belongs to him. Patrick refuses. Logan has advanced dramatically, but this opponent remains beyond him. Logan ends the debate by punching his injured father in the stomach and knocking him down. In Patrick's current condition, Logan could defeat him too. He asks his father to trust him and step aside. Patrick reluctantly agrees, warning him to remain careful. Logan says they need to finish quickly. The enemy knight is furious that a child approaches instead of Patrick. He charges force through his body and meets Logan's sword. One collision drives the veteran several meters backward. The result makes no sense to him. Logan's presence does not feel like high-ranking power, especially through the knight's injuries. Yet losing the clash suggests the boy is forcing his body far beyond normal limits. He attacks with killing intent. The two leap across the battlefield, exchanging strikes and avoiding fatal angles. When their swords lock again, the knight thinks his wounds are the only reason Logan remains alive. That distraction creates an opening. Logan cuts him and immediately retreats from the counterattack. The veteran's defense closes again without a visible gap. Logan will need to create his own chance. The knight notices that his technique is absorbing force from Logan's sword. Believing the trap complete, he prepares the finishing strike while Logan appears off balance. The imbalance is deliberate. Logan regains his stance so quickly that the veteran wonders whether his own senses have slowed. Aura begins gathering through Logan's blade for a sacred technique. The knight understands the danger and tries to escape. He is too late. A cutting wave erupts from Logan's sword and kills him instantly. Every nearby soldier goes silent. Logan raises his voice across the field and announces that he has slain Tesseron's army general. Enemy morale breaks. A high-ranking knight has fallen, and Count Vic's banner is no longer visible. Soldiers throw down their weapons and request capture rather than death. Rick begins shouting Logan's name and wishing health upon his lord. The chant spreads through McLean's army. Count Vic is already fleeing. 3 years of preparation vanished in one battle. He recruited allied nobles and gathered 100 knights, only for a red-haired monster, strange mercenaries, and impossible weapons to destroy everything. His remaining hope is reaching his own territory alive. Tesseron arrives at the castle and orders the stunned guards to open the gates. Another sentry spots movement in the distance. Knights are approaching, and Logan rides at their head. The Count freezes inside his armor. Logan dismounts and congratulates Count Vic on the speed of his retreat. Standing before Tesseron's own gates, he announces that the war is over and House Tesseron lost. The garrison should open the entrance and welcome the actual victor. Soldiers on the walls hesitate. The Count's sudden return makes Logan's claim believable. A general snaps them out of it, demanding whether enemy words are enough to turn them into cowards. Only 300 riders stand outside. No force that small should capture a fortified city. Logan charges his aura. The gate guards wonder what he plans to do, until he jumps over a wall dozens of meters high. Landing inside, Logan gives the general one choice. Open the gates, or everyone present will spend their final moments wishing they had. Logan can kill them and open the entrance himself. Inside the palace, Tesseron gathers his most valuable possessions and whatever gold he can carry. Logan's voice suddenly comes from behind him. The chase is over. Tesseron falls backward and demands to know how Logan entered. His own servants revealed the hiding place before Logan needed to draw a blade. Their cooperation says everything about the Count's reputation as a lord. Anger flashes across Tesseron's face before cowardice takes control again. He surrenders and promises compensation, according to feudal war customs. Logan should spare him and his family. Logan asks whether Tesseron truly wants to discuss customs. The man declared war without warning and invaded within a day. After ignoring every rule available, he now wants protection from them. Tesseron appeals to noble honor. Tradition guarantees the lives of prisoners captured in feudal conflict. Logan agrees that House McClane respects honor and custom. The Count will be given time to collect a reasonable portion of his wealth and leave alive. Relief reaches Tesseron before Logan finishes. That is what Patrick would do. Logan's father is honorable enough to accept unconditional surrender. A diamond-covered dagger inside an open chest catches Logan's eye. He lifts it and admires the craftsmanship. Tesseron immediately offers it as a gift, explaining that the kingdom's finest artisan made it. Logan refuses and tells him to keep the dagger. Then he drives it into Tesseron's chest. The dying Count accuses Logan of breaking his promise. Logan calmly explains that no promise was made. He only described what Patrick would have done. Tesseron's misfortune is simple. Logan is not his father. The Count tries muttering about noble honor. Logan asks whether he understands how many people died for his greed. A quick death is already more mercy than he deserves. Tesseron collapses. Logan looks at the body and decides the man should thank the gods for such an easy ending. Blood covers Logan's hand as he releases a tired breath. The crisis is finally finished. Only the final presentation remains. He loudly announces that Count Vic Raymond Tesseron ended his own life. Kaisalon enters moments later and suggests Logan inspect the castle's underground prison. Several days pass before Patrick, newly recovered, reaches Tesseron Castle. Outside the walls, he asks Logan about Raymond's supposed suicide. Logan maintains that the defeated lord must have fallen into terrible despair. Patrick does not believe a word. He steps close and asks directly whether Logan killed him. For a moment, father and son look ready to fight. Logan admits the truth. Tesseron was deliberately eliminated because McClane needed to seize control completely. Leaving his bloodline in place would create another enemy waiting for revenge. Patrick studies his son and gives an unexpected answer. Logan has become a man with his own reasons, and he was the most important person on this battlefield. Patrick thanks him. Logan's smile is wide and completely genuine. His father turns red, stumbles over the words, and tells him he did well. Then Patrick delivers even better news. Logan will be named the official heir of House McClane. Logan smiles, apologizes, and refuses the position of heir. Patrick cannot understand why. If Logan fears his reputation, the battle has already erased much of that problem. Nothing changes public opinion faster than winning an impossible war. Reputation is not Logan's concern. House McClane descends from knights, and Ronian is the more gifted candidate. He awakened force at 14, 4 years earlier than Logan. Nobody can predict his strength by adulthood. Patrick argues that combat ability alone does not create a capable lord. Under current expectations, he is correct. Logan also remembers that Ronian eventually becomes the continent's youngest force user, removing any doubt about his qualifications. More importantly, becoming Baron offers Logan no advantage. Managing the title would consume time he needs elsewhere. He asks Patrick to give his younger brother a fair chance. Wait until Ronian reaches adulthood, then choose the heir between them. Patrick never imagined Logan cared this deeply for his brother. He agrees to delay the decision for roughly 5 years. Logan thanks him. Patrick still intends to reward him. Once they return, the family will calculate the war profits, likely worth several 100,000 gold. Logan already has a different reward in mind. Before that discussion continues, guards call for the gates to open. McClane's knights have returned. The townspeople marvel that the army came home within a week and ended the war in one day. Conversations spread through the crowd. Were McClane's knights always this powerful? The first returning soldiers say Logan's mercenaries reversed the entire battle. They appeared behind Tesseron's army as though they knew the future. A mysterious weapon erased enemy formations, and Logan personally defeated a high-ranking knight. People who once considered him useless begin reconsidering every rumor. Perhaps buying monster meat was part of another brilliant plan. Some wonder whether Logan spent years pretending to be a fool. The theories grow, until Logan becomes an incomprehensible genius operating on another level. Awakening force only makes the legend easier to believe. Hearing it from horseback is deeply embarrassing. Ronian asks how all the praise feels. Logan admits that he mostly wants to disappear, and asks his brother not to encourage them. Ronian says the citizens are telling the truth, and deserve a smile from the man who saved them. Logan looks at the excited faces and decides to try. What appears is less a smile than the expression of a wealthy child fighting severe stomach pain. It carries the warmth of a curse and the comfort of a public execution. The instant citizens see it, they freeze. Everyone becomes certain. Logan plans to remove their heads with one hand. Logan has no idea what went wrong. Ronian simply feels sorry for him. Patrick looks back with unmistakable pride, and declares the next cheers will honor the hero of the war. The crowd roars for McClane. Then they raise an even louder cheer for young Master Logan. The welcome celebration somehow lasts until morning, even though its heroes just returned from battle. Logan finally escapes into the castle garden before Marion's voice destroys the silence. Ronian catches her arm and tries slowing her down. She has heard that Logan refused the heir position and demands to know his real objective. Others may be fooled, but she is not. Ronian explains that House Kairos' betrayal left his mother shaken. Logan understands. Whatever hostility Marion still carries, she has lost the outside support that once made her dangerous. This may be the best moment to repair the relationship. Logan admits that his behavior over the previous months gave her no reason to trust him. He regrets the jealousy and insecurity that controlled him for years. Marion immediately claims this confession proves everything was a scheme. Ronian asks her to stop and apologizes for her condition. Logan barely reacts to the accusation because Marion is not the person who deserves his apology most. He turns toward Ronian. Since returning, Logan has apologized repeatedly without naming the full offense. Years of regret and cowardice made the truth difficult to face. Ronian already knows part of it. Logan genuinely hated him. He used that hatred to hide his own weakness. Every success Ronian earned reminded Logan of what he lacked, so he punished his brother for it. Those miserable years cannot be excused. Logan lowers his head and offers a direct apology. He asks Ronian to forgive him. Silence stretches between them. Good deeds do not erase old cruelty, and Logan begins thinking he was naive to expect a simple answer. Ronian finally says it is all right. He always believed that if he remained kind, even when Logan answered with coldness, the brother he remembered would eventually return. Ronian smiles. The expression is gentle enough to make a grown man cry. Logan wonders why he delayed something so simple for so many years. He then tells Marion that his concern for Ronian is sincere. Logan truly wants his brother to become heir. Asking for immediate trust would be unreasonable, so he asks only that she watch him. Everything he does from this point will serve the larger good of House McLean. Marion walks away without giving full acceptance. For now, Logan considers that enough. Soon afterward, he drags Hamar into a forest. The dwarf asks why they are working immediately after returning from war. Logan believes they have rested plenty. Hamar mutters that he is thrilled to discover what exhausting reward waits this time. Logan promises the assignment will be enjoyable. The assurance makes Hamar more suspicious. They stop before a stretch of empty land. The dwarf studies the barren distance and realizes what Logan wants. They are opening a mine. Patrick returns to Logan's requested reward. The young man wants permission to survey a hill near Tesseron's border. Calling it a hill is generous. Patrick sees barren ground with nothing worth taking. Logan smiles and suggests gold may be buried beneath it. In the first timeline, the real reason behind Tesseron's forced war appears 1 year after the conflict. Count Vic begins exporting gold from a hill he seized inside McLean territory. That mine alone gives his house influence beyond ordinary counts, until Ronian eventually destroys the family in revenge. Kaisalon's discovery beneath Tesseron Castle adds another gift. Several prisoners insist they committed no crime. Count Vic hired them to transport gold from a mine, then locked them away anyway. Logan covers his face in disbelief. Tesseron imprisoned 5 valuable mining experts rather than paying or releasing them. One prisoner mistakes Logan's reaction for sympathy. It is mostly business instinct. The victory over Tesseron solved one immediate crisis, but history offers no rest. 1 year from now, King Samuel von Grandia dies unexpectedly. His 3 sons enter a succession struggle that becomes a 3-year civil war and devastates the kingdom's forces. Before Grandia can recover, the empire launches its true invasion. The civil war is the first major step toward the kingdom's destruction. House McLean belongs to no royal faction. Remaining neutral may keep them safe temporarily, but it could also leave Logan watching the country collapse from the sidelines. He sees a better opportunity. During the disorder, McLean can reclaim its former territory and rise again as master of the Southwest. If possible, Logan will also end the civil war and pursue another objective beyond it. Hamar interrupts the grand vision because Logan has stopped responding. They barely survived one crisis, and dreaming about ruling the Southwest can wait. The dwarf is right. Logan needs power quickly, but speaking openly about those ambitions would sound insane. Every expansion must be funded privately. The hidden hill will become the source. Logan tells the mining experts that gold lies near its center and asks for an estimated cost. The men look stunned, while Hamar recognizes another dangerous Logan idea. Their elderly leader accepts the work because Tesseron paid them well before the betrayal. Still, a gold mine sounds exaggerated. He asks whether Logan is certain. Logan claims he saw the deposit himself and refuses to explain how. The operation must remain secret, so only the 6 people present may handle the excavation. The old man hears a death sentence. 6 workers cannot develop an entire mine. Even a large crew would struggle with the scale. Then Hamar looks him in the eye and suggests preparing to die, sleeping less, and abandoning life as an ordinary person. The miner realizes he has entered a terrible partnership. Logan considers Hamar's attitude perfect. Now that everyone is emotionally prepared for suffering, he asks for the budget. Exploratory shafts alone will cost 5 million gold. Safe preparation takes roughly 6 months, and full extraction requires another 6. The price and schedule match Logan's expectations. This mine made Count Vic wealthier than many counts, so abandoning it is impossible. Selling the monster meat would cover the expense, but public demand will not arrive for 6 months. Logan may not need to wait. Neutralize the poison now, and the flesh can be sold immediately as medicine. Years as a mercenary taught him how to counter countless toxins. Creating the required formula should be possible. Owning the formula would make him rich before the wider discovery begins. 1 week later, Rick brings him a prepared powder made from night herb, net herb, and drip grass. Rick calls it fake medicine. Logan corrects him. It is a toxin-neutralizing agent. The monster meat waits inside a village warehouse. Logan says they will apply the powder there. Rick immediately asks whether his presence is truly necessary. It is. Rick has never entered the warehouse and fears what waits inside. Logan thinks the concern is melodramatic until the smell reaches him. The stench makes the sewer seem welcoming. Logan expected something unpleasant. He did not expect his stomach to revolt. Rick has already started gagging. Force offers Logan a convenient solution. He temporarily disables his own sense of smell and prepares to work. Rick cannot believe his master is suddenly comfortable while he continues suffering. When Logan explains the trick, Rick calls him selfish. Logan says Rick is welcome to awaken Force and solve the problem himself. He hands over the white neutralizing powder. Rick must coat the flesh until the outer layer becomes white. Any remaining black portion still contains poison and must be handled carefully. After treatment, the meat should be cut thoroughly and rolled into small pills. The first sample finally resembles medicine. Logan announces that they will sell it as a treatment, with Rick managing production. Rick refuses absolutely. Logan offers 100 gold per completed pill. Rick discovers an immediate passion for pharmaceutical work. Logan is disappointed that free labor vanished so quickly. One step remains, proving the medicine works. Rick asks what condition it treats. Logan says it helps men. That explanation means nothing to him, so Logan offers one very specific metaphor. Imagine a male rabbit too weak to move his little foot properly inside a cooking pot. A female rabbit gives him a stimulant. The miserable rabbit transforms into an energetic beast, and the little foot becomes 4 times more useful for stirring. Logan asks whether the message is clear now. Rick understands perfectly. Better yet, he already knows the ideal test subject, Lord Dwayne. Dwayne knocked on Logan's office door and stepped inside after hearing permission. He apologized for interrupting, only to discover the room apparently empty. Then Logan materialized behind him like a financially irresponsible vampire. Dwayne nearly launched himself through the ceiling. He demanded that Logan stop sneaking up on people before somebody died. Logan calmly claimed he had only wanted to massage Dwayne's shoulders. The poor administrator had been carrying the entire post-war cleanup on his back. Dwayne insisted Lord McLean had suffered far more. Patrick had even collapsed from exhaustion. Dwayne immediately pointed out that Logan had scared him unconscious. Logan understood how hard the administrator had been working. That sympathy finally broke Dwayne, who blurted out that the family was completely broke. The war had swallowed their final coin. Yet the servants and knights kept demanding money without knowing the truth. Every request landed on the administration, and Dwayne's skull was paying the price. Then Logan asked whether stress was also causing his bedroom problem. Dwayne froze so completely that his soul probably left first. He tried to escape, but Logan stopped him long enough to hand over a pill. Logan introduced it as a patented product from the Philip Claude Company. According to him, 1 dose was enough to guarantee results. Privately, Logan admitted he had never tested that guarantee. He framed the free sample as an exclusive gift, and Dwayne swallowed the pill with great suspicion. Not long afterward, Dwayne came sprinting through the castle toward Logan and Rick. Rick heard him yelling, while Logan already knew exactly why he was back. Dwayne wanted more. Rick started lecturing him about running indoors, but Dwayne ignored every word. He went straight to Logan and demanded a price for the pills. The desperation in his eyes suggested bargaining might become a blood sport. Logan answered with the satisfied grin of a merchant whose trap had just snapped shut. Meanwhile, Rick muttered that nobody in this castle ever listened to him. Logan asked Dwayne for his hand. Breathless and drenched in sweat, Dwayne dropped to one knee. For a moment, it looked disturbingly like a marriage proposal. Logan seemed ready to accept, and Rick could only watch the romance unfold. Instead of a ring, Logan placed a wooden box packed with pills into Dwayne's hands. Dwayne received it like a sacred treasure. With the first trial declared a triumph, Logan continued testing the medicine on other men. His next target was Hankel. During a private meeting, Logan casually mentioned hearing about Hankel arguing with his wife every night. Hankel denied everything and demanded the name of whoever started that rumor. Logan skipped the investigation and shoved a pill straight into his mouth. The effect reached Hankel almost immediately. He headed for the door, attempting to explain himself along the way. Logan told him to go see his wife and leave Patrick's affairs to him. Hankel thanked him with a bright smile and tore out of the room like a natural disaster. Whatever happened next, that household was probably not sleeping early. Patrick became the 3rd test subject. Judging by his reaction, the medicine earned another enthusiastic approval. Logan glanced toward his father's room and silently apologized to Ronian, who might not remain the youngest for much longer. Rick finally lost his patience and asked why Logan had never offered him a sample. After all, Rick was the one working harder than anyone. Logan gave him a blank stare, glanced meaningfully below his waist, and walked away. Rick shouted after him, demanding an explanation for that deeply insulting look. Without turning around, Logan said Rick would never get a chance to use the medicine anyway. Giving him a pill would only waste valuable inventory. Then Logan ordered him not to follow because he smelled terrible. By now, tormenting Rick had clearly become Logan's favorite hobby. Once the trials were complete, Logan contacted Philip through a communication orb. Philip agreed that demand would explode if the medicine performed as promised. He wanted to know what Logan planned to charge. Logan set the price at 100 gold for a single pill and 10,000 for a box of 10. Philip stared as if the arithmetic were criminal, warning that the capital's nobles were not stupid enough to accept such pricing. Logan knew that already. In his previous life, the same medicine became so desirable that its value soared. By releasing only a small supply, they could push wealthy buyers into paying even more. Philip considered the strategy and reluctantly admitted it made sense. He purchased another 10 minutes of communication while Logan moved to the next part. Their sales would become absurd if a famous person used the product and unknowingly confirmed its quality. Naturally, they needed someone important who also needed this particular cure. Philip argued that no nobleman would publicly announce that a pill had fixed his impotence. Logan replied that no announcement was necessary. The capital was packed with servants, attendants, and social climbers who watched noble families constantly. One carefully planted secret would bring customers swarming toward the medicine. That gave Philip an idea. Logan should attend a party in the capital. Logan reacted as though Philip had suggested public execution. The only celebration he remembered attending was a mercenary drinking party after a war. His family had never possessed enough money for aristocratic social events. Philip reminded him that parties were useful for forming connections, especially in business. It would take time, and Logan could hardly stand in the ballroom selling pills from a basket. Unfortunately, that sentence gave Logan an even more dangerous idea. Philip immediately asked whether he was seriously considering something that could get House McLean rejected by high society. Logan assured him there would be no scandal because he would not personally sell anything. Instead, he told Philip about an exceptional information broker in the capital. Philip was to find that man and gather everything Logan required. When Philip asked what new disaster he was planning, Logan refused to explain. He would travel to Grand soon and reveal the full scheme after arriving. The conversation ended with Philip feeling that familiar sense of approaching trouble. A week later, Logan arrived in Grand, the capital of the Grandia Kingdom. Philip could hardly believe he had actually come. He asked how Logan had convinced his family to approve this trip. An aristocrat's son visiting the capital to sell performance pills was not exactly standard noble business. Logan admitted he had left that detail out. Transporting nearly 3,000 boxes without a servant had been the only real inconvenience. Patrick had granted permission more easily than expected, probably because of Logan's achievements during the war. Philip remembered that Logan had been servantless when they first met as well. He wondered whether a nobleman should really wander around alone. Logan argued that attendance only slowed him down, and his own servant already had an assignment. That servant was Rick, who had supported Logan through every hardship in both lives. Logan could be brutal with him, but he was genuinely grateful. Rick expressed that bond by stealing a box of the new pills. Logan warned that every tablet dropped while shaking the box would earn him one punch. Nothing says loyal friendship like controlled workplace violence. The incident also gave Logan an inspired branding idea. To honor Rick's years of service, he named the product Rick Ampoule. Immortalizing a man through impotence medicine was certainly one way to preserve his legacy. After hearing the name, Philip no longer wondered whether Logan was insane. He considered the matter settled. Inside their residence, Philip suggested that Logan rest at an inn after the long journey. Logan advised him to choose his words carefully, while discussing a man's private failure in a place full of listening ears. Philip agreed, and moved the conversation somewhere safer. He had met the information broker Logan requested. However, each document had cost them 900 gold. Logan acknowledged that the man charged heavily because his information was exceptionally reliable. If the request was precise, the broker would deliver exactly what they needed. Philip had followed Logan's instructions word for word. The first document listed nobles married for at least 10 years without children. The second identified men with neither lovers nor secondary wives. The third named nobles constantly searching for food that improved male energy. Together, those lists formed a remarkably specific customer database. Logan praised Philip for this job and everything else he had handled in the capital. Philip claimed it had not been too difficult. The truly unbearable moment had been hearing that House McLean had entered a war. He had worried far more than Logan could imagine. Logan was briefly touched to learn that Philip cared about his clients. That warmth vanished when Philip complained about the mountain of monster meat waiting for him. In his opinion, no sane customer would buy that garbage. Logan fired a sheet of paper into Philip's face and ordered him to read. The impact hurt far more than paper had any legal right to. As Philip studied the list, Logan asked which name looked best for their first target. A tear gathered in Philip's eye as he noticed one particular candidate. He pointed to the name. The instant Logan read it, recognition replaced his amusement. Their target was Count Davis. Later, Logan found the enormous man chatting with several beautiful women beneath a ballroom chandelier. He called the Count's name across the party. Davis turned with an expression caught somewhere between disgust and alarm. Logan introduced himself as the eldest son of House McLean. The Count barely restrained his laughter while welcoming the unfamiliar guest. Logan's clothes looked so provincial that Davis wondered which farm had produced him. Perhaps, he decided, this was considered fashion in the Southwest. Those clothes had been Philip's recommendation. Seeing how efficiently they repelled everyone, Logan decided the outfit was perfect. He had no interest in wasting time on useless party friendships. Count Davis was the only person he needed. Davis held an important position in the kingdom's treasury. Despite marrying at 20, he had never produced an heir. Logan knew the Count because his death became infamous in the previous timeline. During a public argument, Davis's wife exposed his impotence before an entire party. The humiliation destroyed his reputation and eventually drove him to suicide. For nobles, public perception could become more valuable than life itself. Davis also matched every condition given to the broker. That made him the perfect first customer for Rick Ampoule. Logan explained that he had come to the capital on business and wished to greet such an influential man. Davis asked what someone from the remote border could possibly sell in a city that already had everything. Still, perhaps the countryside possessed a few unusual products. Logan promised that his merchandise was unavailable anywhere in the capital. It was a medicine designed specifically for men. He leaned closer and whispered that it was a powerful stimulant. Davis visibly flinched. Then, loud enough for the surrounding guests to hear, he mocked a nobleman's son for selling such a product. Two nearby women watched the exchange with painful secondhand embarrassment. Davis believed he had put the arrogant country boy back in his place. Logan simply sighed and prepared his next performance. He announced that proper manners demanded bringing gifts for influential people in the capital. Then he politely asked Davis to accept one. Logan handed him a small box and introduced Rick Ampoule at 100 gold per pill. The 3 tablets inside were a personal gift. On his honor as a noble, Logan guaranteed excellent results without harmful side effects. By the end of that explanation, sweat was gathering across Davis's face. A few days later, someone rang Logan's shop bell. Count Davis had dispatched one of his servants to buy another supply of Rick Ampoule. Logan and Philip confirmed his identity before completing the sale. The servant left carrying a leather bag while Philip thanked him warmly and invited him back. 10 boxes had earned them 10,000 gold. Philip considered that an impressive first purchase. Logan disagreed, because rent for their tiny shop alone cost the same amount. Philip reminded him that securing any storefront in the capital's center was expensive and difficult. Strategically, however, the location was essential. Watching a crowd gather in person would influence people more strongly than any rumor. Logan agreed, then announced that he was leaving for another party. Philip groaned because Logan had attended one almost every day since reaching Grand. On certain days, he had somehow endured 2. One successful customer was not enough. Logan needed as many names from their list as possible to know where the shop was. A week later, Davis's servant returned, still amazed that his master wanted another supply. No expensive health food had ever helped the Count before. When the servant reached the store, a line of men stretched down the entire street. Confusion vanished once he recognized the customers. One was Count Vic Talon's chamberlain. Ahead of him stood Count Hamel's chief servant, using his hat to hide as much of his face as possible. The newcomer decided that lingering would only create unnecessary gossip. He bought the medicine and left quickly. Philip then stepped outside to address everyone still waiting. He apologized and announced that the day's inventory had sold out. The assembled servants reacted as if he had cancelled their master's bloodlines. One man demanded to know why nobody had warned them earlier. Philip explained that Rick Ampoul's popularity had exceeded production. From now on, the shop could release only 50 boxes each day. Two servants immediately begged him to find something for them. Returning empty-handed might not inspire mercy from their employers. While they pleaded, another nobleman passed with his attendant and noticed the commotion. He sent the servant to investigate. From behind a nearby building, Logan watched curiosity spread exactly as intended. Limited inventory made existing customers more desperate. A visible crowd attracted nobles who had never heard the original rumors. Philip firmly repeated that everyone must return tomorrow. The following day's stock vanished again. The third day ended the same way. Soon, the capital was wondering how long this ridiculous shortage could continue. More than a month passed, and sales only grew stronger. Eventually, the entire daily supply disappeared the moment the doors opened. At that rate, a single month could bring them 4.5 million gold. Logan wondered aloud how the capital had collected so many troubled noblemen. They had tripled the price since beginning, yet buyers remained willing to pay even more. It was enough to make him fear for the kingdom's future. Philip responded with an unusually serious stare. Then his face twisted into the delighted grin of a predator discovering fresh prey. His laughter spilled from the store and made pedestrians turn around. The man was simply too happy to contain himself. Logan caught Philip by the neck, ruffled his hair, and praised the little rascal's excellent work. Philip slowly turned purple while receiving this affection. Once released, he bowed and thanked Logan for recognizing his effort. Logan rewarded him with 1% of total sales, beginning the following week. Philip instantly swore eternal dedication and attempted to kiss him. Neither man noticed the hooded stranger watching from across the street. Wrinkles covered the observer's face, and a blonde beard showed beneath the hood. Later, Logan used a magic shop's communication line, and shouted that the annual quantity would be at least 10 tons of gold. Every customer turned to stare. Logan abruptly lowered his voice and stared toward the door. On the communication orb, Hamar asked whether he had heard the report correctly. The prospectors believed a deeper layer held a major gold deposit. Logan clenched his fists as the number settled in his mind. 10 tons of gold translated to roughly 100 million gold coins. This was not merely a profitable mine, it was the largest winning lottery ticket he could imagine. Hamar warned that extracting it would be brutally expensive. Starting operations alone would require nearly 5 million gold. Logan assured him that the money was already within reach. He ordered Hamar to wait while he secured the funds and workers. Hamar accepted, asking only that Logan stop crushing the miners under impossible pressure. That night, Logan walked through the capital while calculating the investment. The mine needed 5 million gold up front. Current medicine sales were generating around 4.5 million every month. Even 2 months of business would cover the mine and leave money behind. They still held about 700 boxes of Rick Ampoule. Logan began considering a trip home for more stock and the next stage of the territory's development. Then something inside the darkened shop pulled him from his thoughts. He could feel another presence. Suspecting thieves, Logan charged the building immediately. His kick tore the door from its hinges and sent it crashing into the wall. At first glance, the room was empty. Logan drew his sword and wondered whether the intruders had escaped. That made no sense because the shop had only one entrance. Whoever had entered should still be inside. A shadow flashed beside him the moment that thought formed. Logan reacted late and slashed at a hooded figure. His blade missed. He demanded that the intruder identify himself. When Logan turned, nobody stood within sight. He remained motionless, with his sword aimed into darkness. He knew someone had been there. The sensation suddenly returned from above. Realizing the thief had reached the roof, Logan leaped after him. His sword swept toward the cloaked figure with enough force to pierce through. The stranger shifted away at the final instant. Logan landed on the roof and prepared another strike. Once again, he demanded a name. The figure answered by vanishing without leaving the smallest trace. Logan could barely process what he had witnessed. 1 second, a man had been standing directly before him. The next instant, even Logan's senses found nothing. Only a torn piece of cloak remained in his hand. By morning, Logan and Philip had concluded that an aura user entered the shop. Logan could not prove it, but the thief had to be an advanced force user at minimum. That title belonged to warriors beyond even high-ranking knights. More importantly, the stranger's presence felt nothing like an ordinary elite knight. He existed on another level entirely. Philip struggled to understand why someone with aura would commit petty theft. Aura alone could elevate a slave into the nobility. Why would a warrior that powerful sneak around stealing merchandise? Philip asked what had disappeared. The answer was only 2 Rick Ampoule pills. Nothing else had been touched. If money were the goal, the thief would have taken far more. The obvious conclusion was that he wanted to use those 2 pills personally. Philip wondered whether even aura masters suffered from such problems. That question gave Logan a new angle. He asked whether the broker's records contained any aura users. Philip admitted they did not. Information about warriors of that rank required a much higher fee, so he had declined. Still, one possible name came to mind. There was an aura user living in the capital with no children. At that moment, a broad, elegantly dressed nobleman walked through the city beside his wife. His blonde hair and beard framed a gentle face. Pale blue eyes lingered longingly on children playing nearby. When his wife asked what he was watching, he panicked. Sweating, he claimed the scenery had simply caught his attention. She did not believe such a miserable excuse for 1 second. She asked whether he had been staring at children again. He insisted that he was only enjoying the view and thinking nothing foolish. Then he wrapped an arm around her and suggested they return home. She ignored the attempted retreat and told him how happy she was to have met him. The man looked at her with quiet joy and a small smile beneath his mustache. Holding her closer, he told her he felt exactly the same. This was Felix Esperanza, the kingdom's greatest swordsman. Behind his strength lay an old injury and years of regret. As a young knight, fighting for his country, Felix had taken a wound directly between his legs. At the time, he treated it as an honorable battlefield scar. He was young and gave little thought to its future consequences. Years later, the title of Duke in recognition as the nation's strongest warrior felt strangely hollow. Without a child, he had nobody to inherit any of it. Felix once confessed the truth to his wife and expected disgust or disappointment. Instead, her compassion stunned him. With tears in her eyes, she asked how long he had suffered alone. She wanted only to remain beside him and support him. Ever since, Felix had wondered how he could ever repay that enormous love. Later, Felix walked through the castle gardens with his attendant. The servant, Louis, reminded him that the family meeting was about to begin. Felix saw no reason to arrive early. The relatives would merely pressure him to produce an heir again. After some hesitation, Louis mentioned an unusually effective medicine spreading through the capital. Felix responded with open skepticism. Louis claimed the medicine supposedly worked even on physical injuries. The Duke still showed little interest. His servant pressed on, saying too many people had reported remarkable results to ignore. Felix lowered his head in private shame. He had already tried the medicine. Worse, the kingdom's greatest swordsman had stolen it. His wife's sorrow had driven him past the discipline he maintained throughout his life. Yet, after taking the pills, absolutely nothing happened. Felix advised Louis not to believe every rumor circulating through the capital. The medicine's success stories were probably exaggerated nonsense. If Aura could not repair his injury, some mysterious pill had no chance. He should have abandoned hope long ago. At the gates of the Esperanza estate, a guard refused Logan entry without an appointment. Logan only asked him to deliver the visitor's name. Once Felix heard who had come, Logan was certain the Duke would agree to meet him. Earlier, Philip had stared at Logan in disbelief after learning the plan. Logan was really going to visit the Duke personally. Philip nodded, then asked whether Logan planned to confront the kingdom's strongest man. Would he accuse Duke Felix of theft, or simply ask whether he was impotent? The thought alone sent Philip into a panic. Logan calmly asked why Philip was doing such an accurate impression of him. Philip begged him to pretend nothing had happened. Provoking that man without proof could get them both erased from existence. While waiting in an estate corridor, Logan admitted Philip had a point. However, if last night's intruder truly was the Sword Duke, this opportunity was too valuable to abandon. The chief butler emerged and opened an elegant wooden door. Felix waited inside beside a window. As Logan approached, he considered the value of earning goodwill from one of the kingdom's most powerful men. He bowed properly and introduced himself as House McLean's eldest son. Up close, Logan noticed how little Felix had aged. The Duke was nearly 70, yet looked decades younger. His overwhelming aura was probably suppressing the physical signs of old age. Felix recognized House McLean as a southwestern family. He asked what had brought Logan such a long distance. Logan decided against revealing his real purpose immediately. He explained that a recent commercial venture brought him to Grand, along with a complimentary product. A small box slid across the table. Logan described it as an excellent medicine for men, already proven by countless nobles. Felix watched the box and asked whether that was true. His expression gave no clue that he had ever seen the medicine before. Logan kept his head lowered while uncertainty bothered him. He still could not prove Felix was the thief from the shop, so he raised the stakes. Logan said an extraordinary warrior like Felix probably had no need for ordinary medicine. For that reason, he had brought something considerably stronger, and a tiny reaction crossed the Duke's face. That was enough for Logan. Felix had shown no interest in the normal Rick ampule because the stolen pills produced no effect. The standard formula used neutralized monster meat poison as a stimulant. Such a mild dose could not influence the body of an aura master. Logan had repeatedly concentrated the substance into a far stronger extract. He introduced it as a limited edition of Rick ampule. Felix's attention finally sharpened. The glamorous limited edition was really 50 ordinary pills compressed into one. Logan could guarantee a reaction because its pain alone might kill a normal human. An aura user, however, could survive and absorb it differently. If the pill satisfied Felix, Logan would appreciate hearing his opinion. He also promised another custom batch in any quantity the Duke desired. Naturally, every part of the arrangement would remain completely secret. The following day, Felix's glowing face announced the result before he spoke. He offered Logan any favor within his power. Internally, Logan celebrated like a man who had discovered another gold mine. Outwardly, he maintained a respectful expression and pretended not to understand. Felix explained that an aura master controlled both his body and life energy. That allowed him to judge the treatment with absolute certainty. The medicine had worked perfectly. Not immediately, but after roughly 30 uses, the effect accumulated until the old injury completely healed. Years of longing and pain were finally beginning to leave him. Felix appreciated that Logan had delivered the gift without ever mentioning his condition. He also remembered Logan's unbelievable swordsmanship during their brief encounter. A young man that talented somehow felt like exactly the person who might possess miraculous medicine. The poor Duke had endured such a long drought that gratitude was attacking his common sense. Felix admitted he might be speaking too soon. Still, Logan's gift had shown him a real chance to overcome a lifelong condition. He wanted to return the favor and again asked what Logan desired. Logan stared at the floor and requested nothing more than a worthless swordsmanship book. Felix searched his library and brought one back. He warned that blindly practicing its contents could injure Logan, though the text was still worth studying. Logan thanked him and asked for one additional favor. He wanted a signed letter confirming that Felix had given him the book. The Duke saw no problem with that request. Logan now possessed exactly what he had come to obtain. Taking only one sword manual seemed wasteful while Felix was willing to grant almost anything. But Logan's true objective lay somewhere else. Before he could leave, Felix reconsidered the exchange. Something about it did not feel balanced. When Logan asked what he meant, Felix offered to teach him one sword technique personally. For once, Logan had no immediate response. The greatest swordsman in the kingdom had just volunteered to become his instructor. Felix understood Logan's desire to remain modest. However, handing him a low-level manual did nothing to satisfy the Duke's gratitude. Logan already carried the secrets of the divine sword. Even so, refusing instruction from the kingdom's strongest swordsman would be unbelievably stupid. He accepted with genuine excitement. Apparently, the jackpot could be won twice in one visit. Soon, Felix and Logan faced one another on the training field. Felix said evaluating exceptional young talent was one of an old man's few pleasures. He warned Logan to concentrate, because he would not go easy on him. Logan settled into his stance. Felix ordered him to draw his sword. Before Logan could move, the master's aura flooded over him. Invisible pressure crushed his entire body and prevented his hand from reaching the weapon. This was the authority of a true aura user. Logan wondered whether every aura master could paralyze an opponent so completely. If so, battles between them would become little more than contests of presence. Yet the pressure did not feel like simple brute force. Felix was using a specialized technique. Logan finally managed to pull his blade a fraction from its sheath. Instead of reinforcing his muscles, he poured force into sharpening his senses. He began analyzing the Duke's energy. Whenever Logan attempted movement, Felix's pressure spread outward from a single starting point. The mechanism remained difficult to understand. Still, Logan discovered how to answer it. He had to move half a step before Felix dispersed the next wave of force. Using that timing, Logan drew his sword completely and assumed a combat stance. Felix acknowledged his talent. Sweat covered Logan, and remaining upright consumed nearly all his strength. The Duke told him to stay focused. Aura gathered at the tip of Felix's blade as he prepared his lesson. Logan fought the suffocating presence, but instinctive fear locked his body again. Then he recognized what had formed before him. Felix's force had become a blade. Logan stared ahead, fully aware that the strike was coming. Logan was in serious trouble. Felix's aura invaded his body, scrambled his senses, and sharpened the red blade of force before him. Unable to dodge, Logan searched desperately for another answer. Then he realized his own force could at least meet the Duke's power. He drew everything inside him into a protective circle. Felix was surprised that Logan intended to confront the attack with force directly. The Duke pulled his sword behind him and condensed his energy for the strike. One step carried him forward, and the next sent him lunging with murderous intensity. Logan raised his blade inside the defensive aura and felt instinctive terror crawl across his skin. Felix's attack smashed through him exactly as expected. Logan flew backward and crashed into a wall. Even his sword failed to survive intact. Felix showed no exhaustion at all. He watched with the cold calm of a man who had barely begun. Logan tried using his broken weapon to stand, but his body would not stop trembling. Pieces of the sword lay scattered around him. His thoughts remained trapped on the overwhelming strike he had just received. Felix asked whether Logan truly believed he needed to teach something the young man could already discover himself. The Duke had seen Logan analyze the pressure and become serious without even realizing it. Pride entered Felix's expression as he praised Logan for confronting the attack head-on. Some people were simply born to rise above everyone around them. As Logan lost consciousness, Felix decided watching his growth would be entertaining. Later, the Duke's chief butler found Logan preparing to leave. Felix had invited him to remain until his body fully recovered. Logan claimed the potion provided by the Duke had already restored him. The butler accepted that answer and escorted him outside. After exchanging polite farewells, Logan walked away at a suspiciously fast pace. The servant was still wondering where he went when Logan disappeared around a corner. Out of sight, Logan immediately slowed to a painful limp. Felix's attack still made every step miserable, but Logan refused to waste such a priceless potion on injuries he considered manageable. The Duke had casually handed him a top-grade healing potion that was nearly impossible to obtain. Logan's force had evolved specifically to repair internal damage. Even so, wounds inflicted by Felix would take considerable effort to heal. Logan looked at the potion and decided the visit had still given him far more than it cost. He also carried a note containing the communication coordinates for Felix's estate. If Logan ever encountered trouble, the Duke had invited him to make contact. Logan could hardly believe Felix now viewed him so favorably. The relationship already resembled that of a teacher and student. That connection would become enormously useful in the future. Philip suddenly appeared behind him and nearly caused another internal injury. Logan spun around and demanded to know why he was lurking there. Philip had been watching from a safe distance. Seeing Logan's pale face, he asked whether Logan had said something rude enough to anger the Duke. Logan explained that the truth was completely opposite. He had merely received a short swordsmanship lesson from Felix. Then Logan coughed blood, and Philip took it as confirmation of an assassination attempt. He immediately planned their escape and promised to find horses swift enough to outrun disaster. Logan tried to explain, but Philip was already muttering through a full evacuation plan. A week later, a sign on their shop announced that Rick Ampoule was sold out. Inside, Logan triumphantly reported total earnings of 4,100,000 gold. Philip calculated that passing 4.5 million within the month would now be easy. They exchanged a look and celebrated loudly enough for the street to hear. Logan ended the joy by asking whether Philip was happy enough to surrender this month's bonus. Philip returned to reality and begged him not to destroy a beautiful daydream. He had also secured the processing of all the monster meat Logan purchased. Logan praised him for handling the assignment well. Philip suggested buying a house in the capital instead of continuing to pay for lodging. Logan rejected the idea. They would remain in the capital for only another year and a half. Investing a fortune in permanent property made little sense when they would eventually move. For now, Philip needed to focus on Rick Ampoule. When he asked what future move Logan meant, Logan told him it was nothing to worry about yet. Philip instead asked Logan to protect his health. Seeing him cough blood had been horrifying. Logan said that was precisely why he spent the entire week locked inside his room. Philip questioned whether he had actually rested. Every time Philip entered, Logan had been hunched over the desk working on something. Logan declared that subject none of his business. Philip complained that his partner kept far too many secrets. Logan appreciated that Philip grumbled without forcing the issue. Rick would have dug until he uncovered every detail. Philip then asked whether Logan was truly returning home. Logan confirmed it and ordered him to calm the customers until another shipment arrived. He also had one more assignment. Every month, Philip must send 100,000 gold worth of food to the McLean and Tesseron territories. Philip wondered whether Logan planned to feed the entire region. Logan told him to stop muttering and find a supplier, because the deliveries had to continue for a full year. Philip was amazed that Logan cared so deeply about his people. Logan's reasons were less sentimental. Solving McLean's food shortage would require at least a year. The people's labor formed a major part of his plans, and starving workers were not particularly productive. Before leaving, Logan casually mentioned another piece of business in the city. Philip did not bother requesting details. He had accepted that Logan's life contained an unlimited supply of unexplained missions. Elsewhere, impoverished people huddled across the cold floor of a warehouse. They wrapped themselves in whatever scraps of cloth they could find. Among them, a man with blood on his face stared hopelessly at the ground. At a magic shop, Logan handed a list to a mage. The mage asked whether he genuinely expected them to locate everyone named there. They had little more than names and vague characteristics. Searching for those people could require combing the entire continent. Logan asked only whether the task was possible. He would compensate the mage generously. After another uncertain look at the paper, the man reluctantly accepted. Logan knew the search would be as difficult as expected. Some of the listed names might not even be real. Nevertheless, he had no alternative. He needed to gather every independent superhuman he could find. In the old timeline, these fighters reached superhuman heights while remaining independent. Every successful recruit could become essential when the Empire finally attacked. One mercenary in particular had once fought on the Empire's side. As Logan walked away, he suddenly stopped himself. Success in the capital had pushed him into moving too quickly. He looked at the sky and remembered that time was still on his side. He could afford patience. Unfortunately, that confidence might already be wrong. Inside a dungeon-like chamber, a man attempted to calm an enraged old master. The elder ranted about someone mistreating his disciples and demanded information about the offender's other followers. Even the master of a magic tower entered his furious complaints. The messenger explained that he had only come to deliver information. The furious elder ignored the distinction. His anger remained completely uncontrollable. He demanded to know where his disciple had been sent this time. The answer was a 6-month business assignment in the distant southwestern territory of McLean. The elder placed a heavy hand on the messenger's shoulder. He swore the magic tower master would not escape responsibility again. This time, the matter would be settled permanently. Logan's next destination was the prestigious Earth Magic Tower of Grandia. At the reception desk, an employee had fallen deeply asleep. Logan's greeting forced the man to open his eyes. Once awake, the receptionist studied his visitor with immediate curiosity. At first, Logan's bearing had suggested nobility. The inexpensive suit he wore made that conclusion much less certain. Logan had come to purchase magic scrolls. The employee assumed someone dressed that plainly could not be meeting a high-ranking mage. Perhaps he would buy a few basic scrolls and leave. And Logan requested 150 destruction spells. The receptionist's polite smile nearly fell off his face. Logan remained perfectly calm and presented a statement from Cooper Bank. As the man counted the available funds, disbelief replaced every earlier judgment. The account held an astonishing 4 million gold. After an awkward pause, the employee offered to escort Logan upstairs personally. Destruction was a 4th circle area spell capable of collapsing stone walls. Its slow activation and obvious magical signs made it unpopular in real combat. Logan cared about an entirely different use. In construction, the spell could accelerate development enormously. An older man personally asked whether Logan truly intended to buy all 150 scrolls. Logan confirmed the order. This nervous elder was Radius Great, the man leading the Earth Magic Tower. He could not completely hide his nervous excitement. It had been far too long since the tower attracted a customer this generous. Only minutes earlier, Radius had rushed over after hearing the slightly exaggerated number of 155 scrolls. That reaction was strange for someone holding his position. Although Radius was the tower's 5th-generation master, its accounts contained only 1.5 million gold. The institution's finances were in terrible condition. To Logan, that weakness looked extremely useful. He casually described House McLean as a band of insignificant southwestern thieves. Naturally, he would understand if Radius had never heard of them. Radius immediately apologized for his young disciple's disrespect. He promised the employee would receive a severe reprimand. Logan said punishment was unnecessary. Radius praised his generosity, while the receptionist sat behind the desk wondering how reality had gone wrong. The tower master was privately furious that his employee nearly drove away such a profitable victim. Even while entertaining Logan, Radius continued calculating. In peaceful times, earth magic was mainly valuable for farming and construction. What noble would spend a fortune on expensive scrolls for work that mundane? Worse, people kept spreading rumors that the tower weakened after Radius took control. He had also drained its budget much faster than anyone expected. Fortunately, Logan appeared rich and easy to manipulate. Radius decided to proceed carefully and extract as much money as possible. He warned that one problem might prevent them from fulfilling the order. Creating a 4th circle scroll required supervision from at least a 5th circle mage. Unfortunately, the tower currently lacked enough experienced personnel. Logan looked directly at him and asked what solution he intended to provide. That was not the nervous response Radius expected. He continued by emphasizing how expensive production would be. Logan calmly stood and called the situation unfortunate. As he walked toward the door, he mentioned that he had planned to buy 150 scrolls every month. If the Earth Tower lacked capacity, he would take the contract to the royal family's magic tower instead. Panic launched Radius across the room. He blocked the exit and asked whether Logan truly meant a monthly order. Logan explained that he needed 900 scrolls over the next 6 months. Radius gazed at him like a starving man who had discovered an angel made of money. Logan pointed out that a 6-month contract would be impossible if one batch already strained the tower. When he moved to leave again, Radius threw himself onto the floor and grabbed Logan's boot. He swore the tower could handle everything. Logan asked whether that promise was realistic. Radius guaranteed success while using his own robe to polish the dust from Logan's shoe. At 10,000 gold per scroll, 150 would cost 1.5 million. Greed lit the tower master's eyes. Logan's planned purchases could bring the tower more than 9 million gold in 6 months, so Radius stood and offered a different arrangement. Hiring mages might serve Logan better than buying only scrolls. Logan asked what level of mage he meant. Even average mages usually avoided dirty physical labor. Lending one to a construction project should be far more expensive. A fourth circle mage could probably replace 300 scrolls every month. Logan asked whether the tower had someone at that level willing to work on a building site. Radius quickly corrected the misunderstanding. Even as tower master, he could not order a fourth circle mage around freely. Instead, he offered between 2 and 9 late second circle mages. He would also include between 1 and 3 third circle mages. These disciples had extensive experience working as a coordinated team. In exchange, Radius wanted Logan to reduce the scroll order. Logan considered the proposal. A full magical team could produce better results than consumable scrolls alone. His concern was what kind of mages the tower would assign to manual construction. The answer soon walked in behind a mage named Graves. The exhausted, ragged men looked as though they had crawled home from a war. Logan struggled to find a polite response to their condition. Radius abruptly dismissed them back to their quarters. They fled with enough fear to make the situation even more suspicious. Logan commented that the disciples looked seconds away from collapse. Radius agreed, but insisted they were the tower's youngest and most experienced construction specialists. Despite their appearance, Logan could sense real ability. Their leader had reached the third circle. Several others approached it, and everyone was still in their 20s. They were promising talents. Even so, Logan doubted Radius would genuinely send valuable disciples into the countryside. He said trading a handful of second circle mages for expensive scrolls did not sound fair. Radius promised the 10-person team would be more than sufficient. Logan's familiar merchant smile returned. He offered 1.2 million gold monthly for 120 scrolls and the entire 10-mage team. Radius tried to remain composed, but the offer visibly shook him. From Logan's perspective, those talented mages were practically free. No sensible tower master would send ordinary disciples at that price. The shocking part was how quickly Radius agreed. He produced a contract and insisted Logan sign immediately. The ink had barely dried. Logan stared at terms no rational person should accept and felt something was terribly wrong. Before he could investigate, the tower's great elder, Clayton, smashed through the door. 2 disciples clung behind him in a hopeless attempt to hold him back. Clayton stormed into the office and announced that he knew what Radius had been doing to the disciples. The 5th Circle Elder wanted a private conversation immediately. He demanded to know whether the Tower Master was sending his students on yet another assignment. Radius claimed every decision had served the tower's interests. Clayton asked why only his disciples received the harshest missions. These were not idle trainees. They had barely returned from previous work. Radius dismissed the concern because young people could endure hardship. Clayton accused Radius of targeting his disciples since his promotion to Elder the previous year. Radius replied that the old man had finally lost his mind. Watching quietly, Logan began to understand their relationship. Clayton had reached the 5th circle unusually young. His talent threatened Radius, who answered by punishing the younger mages around him. For Logan, this ugly internal feud was developing very profitably. Radius coldly told Clayton that disobedient disciples were no longer his concern. If Clayton and his students wished to leave the tower, they could go immediately. Clayton asked whether he was serious. Magic erupted around the Elder as he prepared to fight. Radius remained expressionless and asked whether Clayton truly intended to challenge him. As both 5th Circle mages gathered power, the floor began to shake. One disciple realized the building might not survive their argument. Clayton shouted for Radius to prepare himself. Before either man attacked, Logan slammed one hand against the desk. Everyone turned toward the only person in the room who seemed completely unimpressed. Neither master understood what he was doing. The younger disciples looked equally stunned, as Logan held up the sheet he had just stamped. While the tower's leadership prepared civil war, he had finalized the contract and told the 10 waiting mages to follow him. Clayton and Radius could settle their dispute however they liked. The agreement would remain valid even if the Earth Tower suddenly acquired a new master. Therefore, Logan's construction schedule had nothing to fear. Embarrassed by the spectacle, Radius promised to send the scrolls as soon as they were finished. Clayton interrupted because his argument was nowhere near finished. Radius asked whether he intended to obstruct an official Earth Tower contract. He ordered Clayton to remember his position. Clayton answered that his decision was final. He would accompany his disciples. Both Logan and Radius stared at him. The Tower Master called the idea insane. An elder following students to work on a rural construction site was unheard of. Logan protested that he had not hired a 5th Circle mage. Clayton did not want separate payment. He would cooperate voluntarily, protect his disciples, and help finish the work faster. Logan immediately bowed and promised to serve the elder with complete dedication. Clayton requested only 1 day before departure so the exhausted students could recover. Logan agreed and arranged to meet everyone at the western gate the following noon. The next day, a carriage rolled away from the tower. Logan waited outside the western gate with a bag over one shoulder. Yesterday's contract had become a truly ridiculous bargain. Hiring a 5th Circle mage normally cost at least 1 million gold. Logan had gained far more while spending far less. He wanted to reach his territory quickly. The capital needed another shipment of Rick Ampoulet, and several other projects demanded attention. Someone calling his name interrupted those thoughts. The voice belonged to Rina. He remarked that they had not met for quite some time. Logan greeted her casually by name. Rina immediately reminded him that their relationship was nowhere near that familiar. Understanding the correction, Logan formally addressed her as the young lady of House Wolf. He acknowledged the time apart, then observed that her manners had not improved. From her luxurious carriage, Rina hid half her face behind a fan. Rumors in the capital said Logan had entered a suspicious business. She asked whether House McLean was struggling financially. Deep down, she hoped to hear that House McLean had finally collapsed financially. Logan answered with perfect manners. She already knew he was extremely ambitious about making money. The financial condition of his family was none of her concern. Rina reminded him that the settlement from canceling their engagement had been substantial. Perhaps, however, that amount felt ordinary to a thief like Logan. He decided ending the conversation was healthier than extending it. Logan agreed with her insult, turned away, and said he preferred avoiding filthy people. Before he escaped, Rina mentioned hearing about the special weapon used during the territorial war. She wanted to buy it. Logan politely downplayed the crossbow and rejected the offer. Then he practically fled from the carriage. Rina watched him leave with open disgust. Despite Logan becoming famous for selling stimulants, the capital's nobles had ignored a rural territorial war. Even Rina knew very little. That was fortunate, because House Wolf was far too involved in future events. The crossbow's structure was simple. Logan expected only a few more uses before its design reached the wrong hands, and everyone began manufacturing copies. Clayton's voice interrupted him again. The elder and his disciples had expected Logan at the western gate. Why was he walking toward them from the opposite direction? Logan began steering the entire group where he wanted to go. He explained that an irritating person had delayed him. Soon, 3 carriages were racing through the forest. Logan shared one with Clayton and a disciple. After some grumpy huffing, Clayton admitted the vehicle was spacious enough for 6 people. The driver was clearly experienced as well. Logan must have spent heavily to make their journey comfortable. That realization only worsened Clayton's mood. He complained that such luxury was unnecessary and the money wasted, while the disciple tried unsuccessfully to calm him. Logan recognized the excessive pride common among powerful mages. He said serving distinguished sorcerers was an honor, and these arrangements were merely the minimum. Privately, Logan considered flattery a small price for a free 5th Circle mage. Clayton gave no answer. He continued staring through the window with a permanent frown. After nightfall, the group established camp. Logan declared the roads too dangerous to continue and planned to resume at dawn. He lit a fire and began meditating. A man suddenly emerged with a knife ready to strike. The blade flew toward Logan's head. Without breaking his focus, Logan lowered himself just enough to avoid it. He asked who had interrupted him. An attacker stepped from the shadows and praised the dodge. Logan rose while the stranger repeated rumors from the capital. Was this the young merchant who became rich, selling a bizarre medicine? 5 men now surrounded him. They appeared to be ordinary bandits. Logan sighed because he had only wanted to practice what he learned during meditation. Then again, the interruption provided ideal training partners. He drew his sword and warned them that they had volunteered for the position. One bandit laughed and mocked the young noble. Logan ended the joke by cutting his throat in a single movement. 2 others stared at the body, unable to understand how Logan had moved so quickly. One called him a bastard and rushed forward. Logan settled into an offensive stance. As the knife came down, he slipped aside and opened the attacker's stomach. The force of the cut hurled the man across the clearing and into a tree. The remaining bandits lost their confidence immediately. 2 men were already down, leaving 3. One shouted that defeating Logan was impossible and ordered a retreat. Then he discovered his legs would not obey. Logan gathered force around his sword using a familiar posture. He was copying Felix. Enough energy condensed along the weapon to reproduce the Duke's lesson. An aura blade began to form. Logan planted one foot and slashed through the air. The released force struck 2 bandits and dropped them instantly. Then the aura vanished. Logan realized maintaining the technique for any meaningful duration would be difficult. The final bandit collapsed in terror while Logan smiled. Felix's demonstration had allowed him to use the movement at its highest level. While Logan studied the result, the survivor began crawling toward safety. Concentrating and compressing force through Logan's new authority had produced the aura. Felix had also demonstrated the Force Blade, a lower-level version of the Pressure Blade. Logan had assumed even that weaker technique was beyond his current abilities. His face flushed with excitement. He had created a Force Blade, even if it lasted only an instant. Then he noticed the last bandit escaping. The crying man clearly regretted every decision leading into this forest. Logan approached while preparing another attack. Using force released from the sword to suppress an opponent, created the technique called Pressure Blade. Before striking, Logan's predatory smile returned. This new ability should already be practical in real combat. Looking over the bodies, he wondered whether his experiment had gone slightly too far. A voice behind Logan said it had witnessed everything. He turned to find Clayton standing there. The elder looked extremely angry. Logan studied Clayton's angry face and wondered whether the elder thought he had gone too far. The victims were bandits, but losing Clayton's cooperation would still create a serious problem. Fortunately, the elder was not angry. He called Logan's swordsmanship extraordinary. Clayton knew little about force users, yet even he understood such skill was abnormal at Logan's age. Logan thanked him, and finally realized the truth. Clayton's furious expression was not a mood. That was simply his face. They walked through the forest together beneath an uncomfortable silence. Logan watched the elder from the corner of his eye. He had deliberately trained away from camp to conceal his abilities. Had Clayton traveled that far only to find him? The elder finally explained that his disciples had suffered because their teacher was inadequate. He tried to teach them everything he could. Logan assured him that he was already doing an excellent job. Then he asked why Clayton felt the need to share this. Clayton stopped and faced him. Even after reaching McLean, he wanted his disciples to receive proper rest and time to train with him. Clayton would personally work as hard as necessary to create that time, and Logan accepted immediately. Then he noticed something unusual beneath them. Mana was flowing out of the ground behind Clayton. The energy traveled toward the tent where the disciples slept. While Clayton repeated his question, Logan realized the elder had been sharing mana with his exhausted students. He remarked that Clayton cared for them extremely well. The elder called it the minimum responsibility of a teacher. Logan asked whether nearly fighting the Tower Master also counted as the minimum. Clayton insisted Radius had started that argument. The following day, House McLean's banners flew above the territory. Inside Patrick's office, father and son discussed the capital. Patrick asked whether the trip was valuable, and Logan answered that everything he learned had been useful. Patrick was pleased and asked whether there was anything else to report. Logan realized too late that he should have introduced the next subject more carefully. He casually mentioned that his new business in the capital was thriving. Patrick went completely silent. Rising from his desk, he asked what kind of business Logan meant. Logan explained that he was selling the same medicine previously given to Patrick. His father looked ready to collapse. Had his eldest son crossed the kingdom solely to sell stimulants? Patrick rubbed his forehead. He had promised not to interfere, but this was still a spectacular surprise. Next time, he asked Logan to consider the family's reputation more carefully. Logan agreed so quickly that Patrick raised one suspicious eyebrow. He asked whether his son had answered without thinking. Logan cheerfully gave the same answer again. Then he added that he had also become friendly with the Sword Duke. Patrick immediately asked whether he meant Felix Esperanza. His anger returned as he demanded to know whether Logan had sold the medicine to Felix too. Logan smiled and confirmed exactly that. Patrick shouted that his son was dragging House McLean's name through every layer of mud in the capital. Unbothered, Logan produced a book given to him by Felix. In exchange for the medicine, he claimed, the Duke had provided a valuable intermediate sword technique. Patrick calmed instantly and took the manual. Its title was Iron Blood Sword. A note inside described it as an authentic intermediate technique guaranteed by the Sword Duke himself. That guarantee was not entirely authentic. Logan had written it. In the previous timeline, an Imperial merchant recovered Iron Blood Sword from ancient ruins and copied it for a small group of wealthy buyers. Eventually, the text leaked and complete versions flooded the market. Over time, even common people gained access. That would not happen for another 10 years. Teaching it to McLean's knights now could transform their strength. Combined with sword energy and the Divine Sword's secrets, Patrick and Ronian could even develop it into a hidden weapon. The danger was that Iron Blood Sword pushed physical power to its absolute limit. Patrick would never approve a technique capable of damaging its user internally. Attaching Felix's name to the book solved that problem beautifully. As Patrick read, he recognized a level far beyond the family's inherited records. His hands trembled over the pages. Intermediate sword arts were brutally difficult to obtain. Lacking one might explain why Patrick remained trapped at the same level for a decade. If McLean's knights mastered this technique, their overall combat power could rise by at least 30%. Patrick immediately wondered how they could repay the Duke's generosity. Logan admired his father's thinking because he already had a suggestion. Patrick should master the art and demonstrate its value to Felix. Before Logan finished, Patrick rushed toward the door. He threw the family seal into his son's hands. Mastering Iron Blood Sword was now his highest priority. Until that happened, Logan could manage everything else. Only then did Logan understand the disaster he had created. The seal represented temporary control over the entire family. Patrick shouted that he should assist Dwayne with administrative work. He promised to return after completely mastering the technique, thanked Logan, and vanished before any objection could form. Logan stood alone in the office, holding absolute authority and no idea where to begin. Then he realized the seal also allowed him to execute his plans without interference. Dwayne burst into the room at that exact moment. He had heard about Logan's achievements in the capital. Logan silently decided to finish everything he wanted before Patrick returned. Dwayne's first request was money. Logan asked whether the Tesseron War had not already brought funds. Dwayne explained that those earnings could not maintain two castles. The battle created a severe labor shortage, so production would collapse this year. House Sharon had also ended its support. Dwayne dropped to his knees and begged Logan to share the fortune made in Grand. Logan apologized with a smile. Every coin had already been spent. Dwayne could not imagine how anyone burned through that much money so quickly. Logan only continued smiling. Dwayne asked him to stop playing games. A silent stare from above made sweat gather across his face. When Dwayne asked whether he was serious, Logan nodded. The administrator bowed again and demanded to know where everything went. Logan listed 1.2 million gold spent on scrolls and other magical resources. He had also purchased building materials and food. In other words, nothing remained. Dwayne argued that distributing a little food could not meaningfully change the territory. That was when Logan revealed the real number. Food alone had cost 1 million gold. Dwayne asked him to repeat it. For 12 months, Logan planned a monthly food distribution valued at 1 million gold. Dwayne shouted that Logan must have eaten something that destroyed his sanity. The reaction was understandable. Becoming a war hero had not repaired Dwayne's opinion of him. Logan insisted he was perfectly rational and asked whether the amount could feed everyone. Dwayne admitted it could. Then he asked what Logan intended to do with the construction materials and scrolls. Was the family beginning some enormous project? Logan answered with 2 words. They would build a dam. 2 weeks later, notices appeared throughout both territories. The feudal lord had summoned everyone for compulsory labor. McLean residents were to gather by the castle and the city's western gate. Tesseron residents were directed to Storm Castle and the eastern gate. One Tesseron farmer declared that the nobles had finally pushed them too far. A McLean worker called compulsory labor during harvest season pure madness. Another complained that they had barely survived the recent battle. Now their own lord intended to crush whatever remained. The message seemed to offer no real choice. They could die while fleeing, collapse from forced labor, or remain home and starve. Every path appeared to end in the same grave, so the people took up pitchforks and whatever tools could serve as weapons. A furious crowd gathered before the McLean estate, ready to confront their lord in open rebellion. From the estate walls, Logan asked whether everyone had arrived. Among the crowd below, a young man asked an elder if they were truly going through with rebellion. The old man said their lords treated them like dogs while they survived by eating grass. This fight was finally worth the risk. Sweat rolled down the younger man's forehead, but he agreed that resistance offered a better chance. The castle gates began to open. People tightened their grips on farming tools and prepared themselves. When the entrance opened completely, several mounted knights appeared. One shouted for the others to prepare the distribution. The crowd's anger faltered, because nobody understood what the nobles intended to distribute. The elder warned that it had to be a trick. A man placed a heavy sack before him. By order of young Master Logan, every person joining the compulsory work would receive enough grain for 1 month. Everyone was instructed to line up at the gate. Weapons hit the ground immediately. The same rebels who had prepared to storm the castle rushed into an orderly queue. The old man held his bag tightly and stared at the ground. After trembling in silence, he raised his head. His shout carried across the crowd. Long live Logan McLean. When everyone turned, he repeated it. Smiles replaced their anger, and soon the entire gathering was chanting Logan's name. Above them, Dwayne asked why Logan had used a compulsory order. He could have simply requested volunteers. Logan explained that fewer than 1/4 would have appeared. Nobody in either territory trusted nobles. Aristocrats regarded commoners as property. During his mercenary years, Logan learned how the people viewed good and bad lords. The only meaningful difference was how much each one took from them. Even Patrick prioritized knights over civilians because he believed military power sustained a nation. That belief made him maintain 50 knights even when the family could barely afford food. Logan forced the people to gather because they needed to witness the offer before believing it. He turned and asked why Dwayne was staring. The administrator admitted Logan had surprised him repeatedly lately. Logan dismissed the sentiment and said construction could begin now that Dwayne trusted his judgment. Dwayne immediately regretted the compliment. He begged Logan to reconsider spending 2 million gold on the project. Could something this absurd even be built? Logan said Dwayne sounded exactly like Hamar and Clayton. When he first revealed the plan, both men had been speechless. During dinner, they asked whether Logan truly intended to redirect water using a sliding gate. He confirmed that every part of the project must follow his design. Mountains surrounded McLean and left much of its soil dry and unproductive. The northern range prevented the Luder River from flowing south. To transform the territory, Logan wanted Hamar and Clayton to bore directly through those mountains. Hamar said demolishing the entire range sounded more believable. Logan described a tunnel connecting straight into the river. Its opening would measure around 30 meters wide and contain a movable barrier. He called the Western Continental method a dam. That explanation was not entirely honest. The technique was actually a flood control system that would become common in the Empire 20 years later. Logan did not understand every engineering principle behind it. However, he possessed both an expert dwarf and a fifth circle earth mage. That combination made the impossible project worth attempting. If they led construction successfully, McLean's barren western lands could become fertile plains. Clayton was about to respond when Hamar suddenly interrupted. Choosing the correct location would be critical. They had to study soil composition and water levels to prevent the tunnel from collapsing. The interior would require an arched structure, and magical support would be essential. Clayton turned toward Hamar and asked whether Logan's idea was genuinely possible. Hamar seemed surprised that he had just answered his own objection. With a wineglass in hand, Logan confidently declared that it could be done. Both experts immediately began sweating. Hamar attempted to explain that the new mining operation already consumed all his time. Logan interrupted before the excuse could fully form. That was precisely why he had prepared magical scrolls and a team of mages. Hamar only needed to select the correct mountain. The dwarf muttered that he had suspected something when Logan suddenly invited him to an enormous dinner. Meanwhile, Clayton continued wondering whether any of this was real. At the construction site, the elder took position and concentrated his magic. Two workers watched nervously from a safe distance. One reassured the other that Logan's presence surely meant they were protected. Hamar shouted for Clayton to begin when ready. The elder pressed a mana-filled hand against the mountain. A violent eruption shattered the surface into millions of fragments. Everyone scattered to avoid the debris. Hamar shoved Clayton aside and reminded him that controlled force had been the entire point. Logan watched while considering another source of human power beyond physical strength. Mana had been nearly invisible to him in his previous life. Now he could see it clearly. Earth energy flowed from the circle around Clayton's heart and formed patterns inside the stone wall. Those patterns stimulated the rock until it exploded. The evolution of Logan's force core had sharpened his senses to an almost ridiculous degree. Clayton turned with a small smile and told him to watch the next trick. The first blast had only been an introduction. Logan was not impressed until Clayton raised one hand and closed his fist. Every fragment from the explosion lifted into the air. The debris gathered itself into one enormous structure. Logan stared upward with his mouth open. Hamar, suddenly far less confident, hid behind Logan's leg. Clayton had transformed the shattered mountain into a gigantic stone golem. Creating something that massive without tools opened countless possibilities. Several more golems could finish construction at unbelievable speed. They might even become weapons in a future war. Overwhelmed by the idea, Logan grabbed Clayton's hands excitedly. He needed to know exactly how many golems the elder could create. Logan excitedly asked whether Clayton's disciples could create golems too. Clayton confirmed that they belonged to the Earth Tower's golem school. However, one major limitation quickly dimmed Logan's enthusiasm. Only a fifth circle mage could construct a golem core's complete magical formula. Clayton's students possessed skill but lacked enough power. They would need mana stones to compensate. Even then, their golems would be much smaller and weaker than the giant Clayton had summoned. Logan's expression changed completely. Mana stones were rare minerals like mithril, impossible to manufacture artificially. Because they supported magic, they were also painfully expensive. For ordinary construction, their cost made little practical sense, but war measured efficiency differently. If a small investment secured victory, money stopped looking important. Logan asked whether mana stones could strengthen Clayton's golem as well. The elder confirmed they would increase its power, speed, and active duration. A fifth circle creation required a top-grade stone. A second circle mage could work with a low-grade one. That weaker golem would remain active around 24 hours and still surpass an adult man's strength. Logan estimated a low-grade mana stone at roughly 1 gold coin. That price was excessive for labor. During a short conflict like the recent war, however, the same golem could produce enormous value. Dwayne arrived at the site, saw the stone giant punching through a mountain, and terror immediately took over. Logan tried to explain that the golem was simply digging the planned tunnel. Dwayne heard none of it. He fled while shouting that the head of the family needed an urgent warning. Logan turned to Hamar and ordered the workers moved onto the water channel. Nobody needed to remain at the tunnel because the golem could handle excavation. Hamar nodded and began organizing the laborers. 3 major projects were now moving at once. They had the dam tunnel, the water channel, and the mine. Logan already possessed the mine's excavation results. That made it the first destination for available workers. Since returning from the capital, the dam had consumed all his attention. He planned to inspect the mine personally the next morning. When Logan arrived, Workers were moving constantly through the entrance. Hamar stood in the middle, looking especially miserable. Logan greeted him as though they had not seen one another recently. The dwarf asked what nonsense he was talking about, since Logan had been making him sprint from one end of the territory to the other. Hamar finally exploded. He could no longer survive this pace and suggested that Logan simply kill him. There was no time to rest, yet every burden somehow landed on his shoulders. Logan remained silent through the entire outburst. A nearby worker noticed Hamar's despair and urged the others to intervene. Before they could, the dwarf threw himself backward and collapsed with tears in his eyes. Logan gently placed a hand on his shoulder. He acknowledged how hard Hamar had worked. From now on, Logan would trust him to manage and organize everything alone. Hamar stared in disbelief. Was Logan seriously responding to exhaustion by assigning every remaining responsibility? A hint of sadness crossed Logan's face when he realized the dwarf understood perfectly. He offered his little finger and promised unlimited rest once construction ended. Hamar tried to shove the hand away. Logan locked their fingers so tightly that the poor dwarf nearly screamed. After threatening to break it, Logan released him and claimed he had only been joking. Then he turned toward the mine. This time, extraction would advance much faster than in the previous timeline. The dam remained uncertain, but Logan needed it to succeed. Everything else depended on that transformation. Logan later contacted Philip through a communication channel. Philip confirmed the building materials would arrive without trouble. He had also arranged a lumber contract worth another 100,000 gold each month. The news immediately brightened Logan's face. Philip shared the excitement. Once the mine operated and the land had been restored, the entire territory would become unrecognizable. He hoped to see it personally one day. After a thoughtful pause, Logan invited him to visit next year. Philip asked why, then admitted he probably would not receive an answer. Instead, he revealed a troubling rumor spreading through the capital. Something was wrong within the royal family. Logan had heard a similar whisper at the Sword Duke's estate. Nobody knew the details, but the situation sounded serious. He instructed Philip to investigate quietly. Memories of the previous timeline returned. The king would die suddenly the following winter, triggering a civil war. Still, Logan could not assume every detail remained unchanged. If the death were truly unexpected, history might repeat on the original schedule. If the royal family already anticipated trouble, the timing could shift. Logan could not begin full preparations without confirmation. His immediate priority was strengthening House McLean. He ordered Philip to convert their remaining budget into an emergency reserve. Philip also needed to purchase every weapon and suit of armor their budget could reach. The target was enough equipment for 500 men. Sweat appeared on Philip's face. House McLean had only around 100 knights. Logan explained the equipment was not for knights but for ordinary soldiers. Philip asked whether Logan had finally lost his mind. Noble families never equipped every soldier properly because the expense was considered wasteful. Logan ignored the objection. His decision looked strange but served a necessary purpose. The recent war had killed many workers and reduced production. Next time, McLean needed to minimize recruitment while increasing the strength of both knights and soldiers. Proper equipment was essential to that strategy. Logan asked whether his judgment had ever failed Philip before. Philip reluctantly admitted it had not. With a satisfied smile, Logan told him to proceed. Philip agreed and promised to investigate the royal rumor discreetly. The core preparations were coming together. The mine would secure money, the dam would provide food, and the army would receive better weapons. House McLean was building the foundation for a massive leap forward. Unfortunately, that leap came with an enormous pile of paperwork. Dwayne stood beside Logan's desk, directing him from one document to another. Read this page, sign that one, and prepare for the next stack. When Logan signed without checking again, Dwayne asked whether negligence had become his official policy. Temporary authority apparently meant actually governing the territory. The office door flew open while Logan argued that Dwayne should handle everything and asked whether anyone disagreed. Dwayne reminded him that the administrator was not the heir. Kaisalon rushed inside looking terrified. The mine had just collapsed. Hamar was trapped somewhere beneath it. A cold shiver ran straight down Logan's spine. Logan shot out of his chair and demanded an explanation. Kaisalon reported that more than 50 meters of one mining tunnel had collapsed. Nobody knew where Hamar was trapped. Logan asked whether rescuers had located him yet. Dwayne interrupted to ask when their territory had acquired a mine in the first place. Logan ignored him completely. A 50-meter collapse left no time for conversation. He rushed outside and ordered everyone toward the mine. Dwayne remained behind, shouting questions at nobody about the mysterious mining operation. Logan reached the site on horseback and demanded the collapsed tunnel's location. A worker pointed toward the central passage, the mine's deepest and darkest route. Logan entered before the explanation finished. Force sharpened his vision inside the darkness. What he saw made the situation far worse. Massive rocks sealed the passage while several workers struggled hopelessly to move them. The elderly foreman supervising the effort noticed Logan's arrival. Logan ordered everyone to step back. He placed one hand against a boulder and filled it with force. 10 living presences remained beyond the collapse. One carried the same energy Logan recognized from Hamar. He told the foreman that the trapped workers had survived the initial disaster. However, many other casualties were still possible. The confused man asked how Logan could possibly know. Logan ignored the question and requested an estimate for clearing the rocks. The answer was at least 3 days. Every additional hour reduced the victim's chances of surviving. Outside, Logan turned to Clayton and his disciples for help. He pleaded for Hamar and the buried miners to be rescued, promising any reasonable reward. Clayton understood that the collapse had occurred where the dwarf had been working. He agreed immediately and made clear that money had nothing to do with his decision. Injured people needed assistance, and that was enough. Logan thanked him and promised to return the kindness. Logan had guarded the mine's existence obsessively. Now he exposed the secret without hesitation to save one slave and several common laborers. Clayton stabilized the damaged tunnel with earth magic. His disciples used mana stones to summon golems. They threw enchanted rocks onto the collapse, where the material reshaped into stone workers. The miners backed away. having never witnessed magic on this scale. The golems removed several meters of debris in seconds. Clayton urged his disciples to move faster. Logan did not remain on the sidelines. He joined the miners and mages, lifting stones with his own hands. Clayton watched a nobleman labor beside commoners to rescue workers and a dwarf. It was unlike anything the elder had seen before. The foreman eventually shouted that they had found the victims. Hamar lay among them, partially buried beneath rock. Fear struck Logan until he saw the truth. The visible injuries were frightening but relatively minor. Everyone had survived with little more than cuts and bruises. Relief washed through Logan so strongly that he silently thanked the gods. Later, he questioned Hamar inside the infirmary. The dwarf admitted that he had fallen asleep. Recent workloads had pushed him beyond exhaustion. Logan was furious, but Hamar insisted he would return to work soon. Logan cut him off and ordered him to rest as long as necessary. Hamar was stunned to see genuine concern from his owner. He loudly promised to keep resting even if the world burned or aliens invaded. Outside the infirmary, Logan marveled that the entire rescue had taken only 2 hours. Clayton appeared unexpectedly and called Logan's mind remarkable. Logan wondered whether the mage had discovered that his head was filled with gold. If so, he politely requested secrecy. He explained that the mine was crucial to every future plan. Nobody else could replace Hamar's knowledge. More importantly, a lord who failed to protect his people would eventually have nobody left. That answer caught Clayton's interest. He asked whether Logan wanted a magic tower in his territory. Logan stared at him in disbelief. Clayton had decided it was time to separate from Radius. McLean's land seemed ideal for a small independent magic tower. Logan accepted before the elder could reconsider. He asked whether Clayton's disciples would come and how much the arrangement would cost. Clayton promised the students would follow. He did not demand a large payment. Logan's character and potential were enough to earn his trust. The offer left Logan genuinely speechless. Hamar overheard the conversation and asked whether Clayton had injured his head. Logan ordered the dwarf back into bed before he could destroy the deal. A week later, Hamar announced that he had recovered and would return to the mine. He planned to make up for every hour lost. Logan wished him the best of luck. The moment Hamar left, Dwayne arrived wearing a terrifying expression. He demanded to know why Logan had hidden the mine and how long development had been underway. Logan apologized and said it had slipped his mind. Dwayne asked how anyone forgot something that important. Logan answered with an enormous smile. It was a gold mine. Dwayne told him to stop acting clever. Families like theirs did not simply own gold mines, but the claim sounded completely ridiculous. Logan asked why the idea was so unbelievable and called him a troublemaker. Then his expression turned serious. The mine was expected to produce approximately 100 million gold every year. Logan asked whether that sounded like something he would joke about. Dwayne lost the ability to speak. He asked whether Logan was serious, then froze where he stood. When Logan touched him with concern, the administrator nearly toppled backward. The scale of the mine's income was too large for his exhausted mind to process. Logan tried to keep him conscious while considering their progress. Aside from Hamar's injury, the plan had advanced even faster than expected. Elsewhere, a group of administrators walked through the forest after receiving another summons. They were confused because construction had ended in only 3 months. Everyone had expected it to require 6. Dwayne had gathered them for the final inspection. Logan welcomed the busy officials and thanked them for attending. He wanted everyone present for the dam's opening. One administrator considered the ceremony a waste of time. Spraying river water across a desert would not magically improve the land. Logan should have invested in something sensible, such as repairing the southern wall. The other officials shared the same confusion. Then they noticed Dwayne staring at the dam with his mouth hanging open. He finally understood that the structure was not designed for simple irrigation. It connected directly to underground channels from the Luder River. A continuous flow through those waterways really could transform the enormous wasteland into fertile soil. Logan looked over, everyone assembled at the site. Workers, mages, and administrators filled the area. He turned toward Clayton and gave the signal. The elder prepared the opening without hesitation. Hamar complained that they had worked until their bodies nearly fell apart, yet ordinary laborers would handle opening and closing the floodgates from then on. Logan insisted the first opening deserved to become a major event. He wanted McLean's people to see what their own hands had created. Several stone golems took position before the barriers and prepared to raise them. The administrators had already reached the point where giant magical constructs barely surprised them. Clayton raised his voice and ordered the golems to open the gates. Stone hands gripped the heavy barriers and began pulling. Logan smiled with complete satisfaction. Then, nothing moved. The golems strained against the gates without lifting them. Clayton turned a murderous smile toward Hamar and asked what exactly he had built. The dwarf looked equally confused and began shouting for the workers. Sweat gathered across Logan's face as an old conversation returned. Clayton had warned him that the gates were far beyond the golem's lifting capacity. Using them had always been intended as a visual performance. Actually raising the barriers required around 100 laborers operating pulleys. Logan found the fastest available solution. He told Clayton to order the golems to destroy the gates. Both Clayton and Hamar stared at him. Clayton asked whether Logan was serious. Logan said they could rebuild everything later. For now, the elder needed to do exactly as instructed. After several seconds of hesitation, Clayton gave the order. The golems began punching the newly completed floodgates. The construction crew watched in horror as 3 months of careful work came under attack. One final blow shattered the barrier. Water erupted through the opening with tremendous force and carried the golems away. Everyone else stood in confusion. Logan simply grinned from ear to ear. The townspeople who built the dam began to cry when they saw the water. Unlike the skeptical officials, they immediately understood what it meant. This flow could solve McLean's food shortage during the coming civil war. Farming could begin as early as next spring. Dwayne jumped onto Logan's back, admitted how wrong he had been, and begged forgiveness. Logan said everything was fine. Then he teased Dwayne for crying so hard despite being an enormous grown man. Not everyone was celebrating. In one corner, Hamar cried while calculating how long rebuilding the gates would take. Clayton promised to help repair them. Logan said the gates could wait. Everyone deserved 1 week of rest before finishing the mine. After that project ended, Hamar would receive another long vacation. Hope immediately returned to the dwarf's eyes. He asked whether Logan truly meant it. Logan gave him a reassuring answer. Hamar did not know how quickly work would return. The fertile land would attract farmers from across the territory. Those families would need an entirely new village. Logan turned toward Hamar and nearly offered direct praise. Then he realized praise was the wrong tool for this particular dwarf. He called Hamar over instead. When the dwarf looked back, Logan remarked that construction must have been difficult. After all, he had never heard of dwarves being especially talented builders. Hamar exploded exactly as expected. He declared construction the greatest dwarven specialty after weaponsmithing. Logan replied that this was wonderful news. Suspicion entered Hamar's voice. Flattery would earn Logan nothing. So why had he suddenly become interested in construction? Logan pretended it was harmless curiosity. Once Hamar turned away, Logan began planning the exciting house-building project awaiting him after his vacation. The dwarf would not be laughing when he discovered it. At that point, Logan decided nighttime encounters with Hamar were probably best avoided.